Ryan Caldwell's fingers squeezed the trigger before his brain could stop it. The gunshot cracked through Terminal 3 like thunder, and the black woman in the gray blazer collapsed, blood blooming across her shoulder. His heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear, but from rage mixed with something darker satisfaction. 15 years he'd worn this badge, 15 years watching people like her waltz through his checkpoint with their fake smiles and perfect paperwork, and he was done pretending. She'd looked at him with those calm, knowing eyes, like she could see right through him, like she was better than him. Well, now she was bleeding on his floor. But as passengers screamed and phones rose to record his greatest mistake, the woman's hand moved inside her jacket, not clutching the wound, but reaching for something else, something that would destroy everything. Before we dive into this shocking true story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. And comment below with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes. The afternoon shift at Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 3 security checkpoint had been routine until Ryan Caldwell spotted her. He'd been watching the line for 20 minutes, his eyes scanning faces with the practiced boredom of a man who'd done this job too long. Business travelers, families, college kids, all the same. Then she appeared. She moved wrong. That was the first thing Ryan noticed. Not nervous like the amateurs who forgot to empty their pockets. Not rushed like the late passengers. She moved with purpose but softly, like someone trained to become invisible. Gray blazer, dark slacks, leather laptop bag. Professional, polished, too polished for someone who should be ordinary. Ryan's jaw tightened. His hand drifted to his belt. Something in his gut twisted, and he'd learned to trust that feeling. Or maybe he'd just learned to justify it. "Ma'am, step out of line, please." The woman's dark eyes flicked to his face. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just looked at him with an expression so neutral it felt like an insult. "Is there a problem, officer?" Her voice was smooth, educated, deliberately measured. It grated against Ryan's nerves like sandpaper on raw skin. "Random security check. Step aside." "I see." She moved out of line without argument, without the protests most people offered. That bothered him more. Normal people complained. "What do you need?" Ryan circled her slowly, making sure the other passengers could see. His boots squeaked on the polished floor. Behind him, his partner Davis threw him a questioning look. "Where are you headed?" "Atlanta business meeting." "What kind of business?" "Pharmaceutical sales conference." Ryan snorted. Of course. Always some professional job. "Pharmaceutical sales. Fancy. It pays the bills." Her tone remained even unbothered. "You seem nervous," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not nervous." "Empty your pockets. Everything. Laptop out of the bag." She complied smoothly. Phone, wallet, keys, laptop, travel-size hand sanitizer, boarding pass and driver's license in a leather holder. Everything legal, everything proper. It made Ryan angrier because he wanted something, anything, to justify the feeling in his gut. He snatched the license. "Zara Mitchell, Chicago resident." "That's correct. You travel a lot, Zara. My job requires it." "I bet it does." Ryan handed back the license, slowly making her wait. "Turn around, arms out." Behind them, the security line had stalled. Passengers whispered to each other, phones emerging from pockets. A teenage boy in a Cubs jersey raised his iPhone camera pointed directly at them. Ryan spotted him immediately. "You, put that away." The kid's eyes widened. "It's a public space. I can record." "Not when it interferes with a security operation. Delete it, now." The boy's mother, a woman in yoga pants with a stroller, pulled him back. "Just do it, sweetie. Don't make trouble." But 3 other passengers had their phones out now. An older man with gray hair, a businesswoman in a pantsuit, a college girl with purple streaks in her hair. Ryan felt them closing in, documenting everything. His face flushed hot. Davis stepped over, voice low. "Caldwell, what's going on? We're backing up bad." "Just being thorough, Davis." Davis glanced at Zara, then back at Ryan, uncomfortable. "Yeah, but maybe we could move this along. Morrison's gonna be on our ass." "I've got this." Davis retreated, but Ryan could feel his stare. "Good. Let him watch. Let him learn. Ryan moved behind Zara, ostensibly checking her bag more carefully. Most people got nervous when someone invaded their space. She didn't even shift her weight. Just stood there, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. That thought lodged in Ryan's mind like a splinter. Like she'd done this before. Like she was trained for exactly this situation. You carrying anything illegal? Zara drugs weapons? No. Mind if I search your bag? You're going to anyway. Ryan yanked the zipper open hard. The sound echoed. Clothes neatly folded, toiletries in a clear bag all under 3 ounces, a folder with conference materials, pens, business cards with MedTech solutions printed in neat letters, a protein bar, a travel umbrella. Nothing unusual, nothing wrong. His frustration mounted with each innocent item. Then Zara's phone buzzed in the bin. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession, unknown number flashing on the screen. It stopped, then immediately started again, the pattern of an urgent call. Ryan grabbed it. Who's calling you? I don't know, it's an unknown number. Convenient. He powered it off completely, his thumb pressing hard on the button. You'll get it back when I say so. That's my personal property. You have no right. I have every right. This is a security checkpoint. What Ryan didn't know was that call was from SAC Marcus Webb, Zara's handler, warning her that the weapons shipment had moved up its timeline, that she needed to get through security immediately, that every second of delay could mean the operation failed. But the phone was off now, the warning unheard. What's in Atlanta? Ryan demanded. I already told you, a pharmaceutical conference. Which company? MedTech Solutions. The conference is at the Marriott Marquis downtown. The details came too quickly, too smoothly, like she'd practiced them, like they were a cover story she'd memorized and repeated 100 times. You got proof of that hotel reservation conference badge. Zara reached into her laptop bag's side pocket, without fumbling, without searching. She knew exactly where everything was. She produced a printed itinerary. Hotel confirmation. Conference registration with her name and photo printed clearly. Her name appeared 3 times as a scheduled speaker on panel discussions. Ryan scanned them, looking for any inconsistency. The dates matched. The hotel was real. He pulled out his phone and quickly Googled the conference. It existed. MedTech Solutions Annual Summit. Registration fees starting at $1,200. Pictures from last year's event showed hundreds of attendees in a massive ballroom. Everything checked out. That made it worse somehow. Ryan pulled out his tablet, swiping to the TSA database. He entered Zara's license information, expecting a clean record to pop up. Maybe a speeding ticket. Maybe nothing at all. Instead, the screen flashed red. Mitchell Zara J. ID flagged. Security clearance level 4 classified. Warning, do not detain. Contact federal liaison. Immediate. Ryan's breath caught. Level 4 clearance. That was CIA, FBI, NSA territory. His hands started sweating as he read the next line. Subject may be on active federal operation. Interference may compromise national security. For questions, contact SAC-M Webb, 312-555-0147. For 10 seconds, Ryan stared at the screen. Every instinct screamed at him to step back, apologize, let her go. This was bigger than him. This was federal. This was the kind of thing that could end careers if handled wrong. But another part of him, the part that had been disrespected by passengers for 15 years, the part that resented people with power and clearances and federal badges, the part that was tired of being treated like he didn't matter, that part whispered something dangerous. If she's so important, why didn't she identify herself? Why is she pretending to be ordinary? What's she hiding? What's she really doing here? Ryan glanced at Zara. She stood calmly, not knowing what he'd just seen, not knowing that the system itself was telling him to back off. He closed the tablet, turned it face down on the counter, and made his decision. I'm going to need to pat you down, he said, his voice harder now. That's not necessary. I've passed through the metal detector. I'll decide what's necessary. Davis leaned over, catching a glimpse of the tablet screen before Ryan closed it. His eyes went wide. Caldwell, maybe we should... I said I've got this. Ryan's tone left no room for argument, but Davis had seen enough. Seen the red warning, seen the federal classification. His hand moved to his own radio like he was considering calling Morrison. Then he stopped loyalty to his partner winning out over common sense, a decision he'd regret for the rest of his life. Zara's expression finally changed, just slightly. A tightening around her eyes, a subtle shift in her posture, like she'd just realized this wasn't going to end peacefully. "Are you targeting me specifically, Officer Caldwell?" She'd read his name badge, memorized it probably. "I'm doing my job." "Are you doing this to the white passengers? The man in front of me had the same laptop bag. Did you search his? Did you confiscate his phone? Did you run his ID through your database?" Several passengers nearby went completely silent. The ambient noise of the terminal seemed to drop. Ryan felt their attention shift toward him like a spotlight burning into his back, and heat crawled up his neck. "Don't play that card with me," Ryan said, his voice dropping low and dangerous. "I stop who I stop based on legitimate security concerns. What security concern I've provided every document you've asked for. I've complied with every request. My identification is valid. My paperwork is in order. What exactly am I being detained for?" Detained. She'd used that word deliberately. Legal language, testing him, laying groundwork. "You're not being detained. This is a security screening." "Then I'm free to collect my belongings and proceed to my gate." Ryan stepped directly in front of her, close enough that she'd have to back up or hold her ground. She held her ground, didn't even blink. The top of her head came to his chin, but she looked at him like they were the same height. "You'll proceed when I say you can proceed." Supervisor Morrison pushed through the growing crowd, his radio crackling with chatter. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s, 25 years with TSA, and he'd seen every type of situation imaginable. "Caldwell, what's the situation here?" "Suspicious passenger, sir. Uncooperative and evasive." Morrison looked at Zara, then at the documents spread on the counter. Conference registration. Hotel booking. Valid ID. Everything appeared legitimate. "Looks clean to me. Let her through so we can move the line." "Sir, I have concerns about—" "What concerns specifically?" Ryan hesitated. He couldn't say what he'd seen on the database. That was classified. He couldn't admit he was going on a feeling. Morrison would shut him down. "Her behavior is suspicious. Too calm, too prepared, like she's hiding something." Morrison studied Zara for a long moment. She met his gaze evenly professionally. Then he looked back at Ryan with an expression that said he knew exactly what was happening here. "Caldwell, I'm ordering you to let this passenger through. That's a direct order." For 5 seconds, Ryan considered obeying. Then he saw Zara's expression, that calm certainty, that quiet confidence, and his jaw clenched. She thought she'd won, thought she could go over his head and make him look weak. "Sir, respectfully, this is my checkpoint. I need to complete this screening for security reasons." Morrison's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Caldwell." "Sir, I have information that requires additional screening. I can't discuss it here, but I need to follow protocol." That was a lie. There was no protocol that justified what Ryan was doing. But Morrison didn't know what Ryan had seen on the tablet, didn't know about the federal warning. Morrison's radio squawked. Another issue at gate C12. Someone having a medical emergency. He looked at Ryan, at Zara, at the growing crowd of angry passengers. "This better be worth the paperwork," Morrison said finally. "And Caldwell, when this is over, you and I are having a conversation in my office." He walked away, and Ryan felt a surge of vindication. He'd stood his ground. He'd maintained his authority. But what Ryan didn't see was Morrison immediately getting on his radio. "This is Morrison. I need a supervisor at checkpoint B17. I've got a potential situation developing. And someone get me the federal liaison number. Something's not right here." Back at the checkpoint, Ryan turned to Zara. "Turn around. Hands on the counter." "I decline." "You don't get to decline." "I have the right to refuse additional screening if I've already cleared the metal detector and haven't triggered any alarms. That's TSA Policy Section 4.7. I also have the right to request a supervisor, which I'm doing now. And I have the right to file a formal complaint for racial profiling, which I will be doing. She knew the policy. She knew the exact section numbers. She knew her rights better than most lawyers. Ryan's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" he asked, the question escaping before he could stop it. "I'm a pharmaceutical sales representative trying to catch a flight to Atlanta. But you've delayed me for 15 minutes now. My flight board's in 20 minutes, so either arrest me for something specific or let me go." Around them, passengers were pulling out phones again. The teenage boy from before had his camera running. The businesswoman was live streaming to Facebook. An older man was already typing out a tweet. Ryan felt the moment spiraling, felt control slipping through his fingers like sand, and that made everything worse because he'd been taught that control was everything. That the moment you lost control of a situation, you lost your authority. And without authority, what was he? He grabbed her arm. The contact was electric, a line being crossed. "You're coming with me to the secondary screening area, now." Zara looked down at his hand on her arm. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but everyone nearby heard it clearly. "Take your hand off me. You don't give me orders." "I'm not giving an order. I'm making a request under my constitutional rights. Take your hand off." Ryan tightened his grip, his fingers digging in. Around them, passengers were standing now, bags forgotten. Someone yelled, "Hey, leave her alone!" Someone else shouted, "She didn't do anything!" An elderly woman called out, "This is wrong!" The voices felt like attacks, like challenges to everything Ryan had built over 15 years in this uniform. Davis moved closer, his hand hovering near his own weapon. "Ryan, seriously, man. Let her go, please. This isn't worth it. Whatever you think is happening here, it's not worth this." But it was worth it. It was worth everything. Because this moment right here was about more than one passenger. It was about all of them. All the travelers who looked at officers like Ryan with barely concealed contempt. All the people who thought their education and their money and their perfect paperwork made them better than the people keeping them safe. Someone had to show them they weren't. Someone had to prove that authority still meant something. "Last chance," Zara said, her voice dropping even lower. "Remove your hand or I will remove it for you. That's not a threat. That's a warning. I don't want to hurt you, but I will defend myself." Ryan laughed, actually laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. This woman, this passenger who stood 5'6" in her professional heels, was threatening him. He was a federal officer. He was authorized to carry a weapon. He had the entire airport security apparatus behind him. Who did she think she was? "You're going to remove my hand." He squeezed harder, hard enough to leave bruises. "You're going to assault a federal officer in the middle of an airport in front of all these cameras. Go ahead. Try it. Give me a reason." "Ryan." Davis's voice was urgent, now scared. "Come on, man. Think about what you're doing. Think about your family, your pension. Don't throw it all away over this." But Davis didn't understand. None of them understood. This was about respect, about dignity, about proving that after 15 years of being treated like an obstacle, like an inconvenience, like someone whose only purpose was to get out of the way he mattered. "I said you're coming with me." Ryan yanked on Zara's arm, trying to pull her toward the secondary screening room. She didn't budge, didn't stumble. Her feet stayed planted like she'd grown roots. Her free hand gripped the edge of the counter, anchoring herself with surprising strength. "Final warning," she said. Ryan reached for his handcuffs with his free hand. The metal jingled as he pulled them from his belt. "You're under arrest for failure to comply with a TSA security screening and assaulting a federal officer." "I haven't assaulted anyone. Yet." That's when Zara moved. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't showy. There was no wasted motion, no telegraphing, no Hollywood spinning kick. Her free hand came up and trapped his wrist in a grip that sent shocking pain shooting up to his elbow. Pressure points he didn't know existed, suddenly screaming. Her body twisted with mechanical precision. Weight shifted, leverage applied, and suddenly Ryan was off balance, his center of gravity gone. She controlled the fall completely, kept him from hitting his head, protected him even as she defended herself. But she forced him to his knees with a technique that bypassed every instinct he had, every defense training he'd received. Gasps erupted from the crowd. A woman screamed. A child started crying. Davis lunged forward, hand on his own weapon. "Let him go! Let him go right now!" Zara released Ryan instantly, her hands coming up in the universal gesture of surrender, palms out, fingers spread. She stepped back 2 paces, creating distance. "I defended myself against unwanted physical contact. That's my legal right under Illinois law and the Fourth Amendment. I used minimal force necessary to remove his hands from my person. That's not assault. That's self-defense." Ryan surged to his feet, his face burning with humiliation so intense it felt like fire under his skin. Every passenger in line had witnessed it. Every phone had recorded it. He'd been put on the ground by a woman half his size in front of everyone. The shame was overwhelming, crushing, transforming instantly into pure rage that clouded his vision. 3 airport police officers arrived, drawn by the commotion. Officer Martinez, a woman Ryan vaguely knew from training, took in the scene with practiced eyes. "What happened here?" "She assaulted me." Ryan's voice came out shrill, desperate. "This passenger assaulted a federal officer. I want her arrested immediately." "Officer Caldwell grabbed my arm without cause after I repeatedly asked him to release me," Zara said calmly. "I removed his hand using defensive techniques." Multiple witnesses and cameras captured the entire interaction. Martinez held up a hand. "Everybody calm down. Caldwell, step back. Ma'am, I need you to remain where you are while we sort this out." "I am calm," Zara said. "I've been calm this entire time. Officer Caldwell is the one who escalated this situation." Ryan pointed at her, his hand shaking visibly. "She's lying. She's been confrontational from the start. She refused screening. She quoted policy at me. He stopped realizing how that sounded. "Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down," Martinez said, and Ryan realized with horror that she was talking to him, not to Zara, like he was the problem, like he was the one out of control. "I am calm. She's the one who... Multiple passengers are saying you initiated physical contact." Martinez continued, her voice level and professional. "We've got at least a dozen videos already uploading to social media, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. This is going viral right now. Whatever happened here, we need to de-escalate immediately before this gets worse." De-escalate. Like Ryan was the aggressor. Like this woman who'd put her hands on him wasn't the threat. "She needs to be arrested," Ryan said, fighting to keep his voice level and failing. "She assaulted a federal officer in the performance of his duties. That's a federal felony. 5 years minimum." Martinez turned to the crowd. "Did anyone see what happened?" From the very beginning. Several hands went up. A man in a business suit stepped forward, his phone still recording. "I saw everything. The officer stopped her for no apparent reason. She complied with every request. She provided all her documents. He grabbed her arm first. She asked him multiple times to let go. He refused. She defended herself using what looked like minimal force. She didn't strike him. She didn't injure him. She just removed his hand from her arm. That's what I saw, and I've got it all on video." Other voices chimed in, overlapping, urgent. "He was aggressive from the start." "She didn't do anything wrong." "He targeted her. I saw the whole thing. He grabbed her first. She just defended herself. This is racial profiling." Ryan felt the ground shifting under his feet. The narrative was being written in real time by dozens of witnesses, and he was losing control of it completely. "They're lying," Ryan said desperately. "They didn't see everything. She was suspicious from the moment she entered the line, the way she moved, the way she answered questions. I have training. I have experience. I know what suspicious behavior looks like." "Suspicious how?" Martinez asked, and there was something in her tone, something that suggested she already knew the answer and wanted to see if Ryan would say it. "The way she moved, too calm, too prepared, too controlled, like she had training." "So you stopped her because she was calm?" "I stopped her based on my professional judgment. Based on what specific factors?" Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't say what he'd seen on the database. Couldn't admit he'd ignored a federal warning. Couldn't explain the real reason without exposing himself. "I'd like to file a formal complaint." Zara spoke quietly, but her words cut through the noise. against Officer Caldwell for racial profiling, harassment, unlawful detention, and excessive use of force. I'd also like to speak to his supervisor and the airport's federal liaison. Racial profiling. The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a gun. That's not what this was, Ryan said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. That's not what this was at all. This had nothing to do with that. Then what was it? Zara asked, and her tone was almost gentle, almost curious. You stopped me with no cause. You refused to accept valid documentation. You confiscated my phone without reason. You grabbed me when I questioned your authority. You threatened to arrest me for defending myself. If not racial profiling, what would you call it? Ryan's vision narrowed. The crowd faded. Martinez faded. Davis faded. All he could see was Zara's face calm and certain, destroying him with words more effectively than any weapon. You don't know what you're talking about, he whispered. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know your type, Officer Caldwell. I've dealt with men like you my entire life. Men who see my skin before they see my credentials. Men who mistake their badge for a license to harass. Men who can't handle being questioned by someone they think should be beneath them. Shut up. Men who would rather abuse their power than admit they made a mistake. Shut up. Men who are so fragile, so insecure, that the mere existence of a confident black woman threatens everything they think they are. Ryan's hand moved without conscious thought. The weapon came out of its holster in one smooth motion, trained into his muscle memory by thousands of hours at the range, by scenarios and drills and qualifications. He didn't aim it directly at Zara, not quite. But it was out, and it was pointed in her direction, and the entire checkpoint went silent. Martinez lunged forward, her own hand going to her weapon. Caldwell, put that away, right now. She assaulted me, Ryan said, and his voice sounded strange in his own ears, distant and tinny, like he was hearing himself from underwater. She's a threat. I'm neutralizing the threat according to my training. She's not a threat. She's standing still. Put the weapon down. But Zara wasn't looking at the gun. She was looking at Ryan's face, reading something there that made her expression shift from calm to calculated. Like she was running through scenarios in her head, planning her next 3 moves, staying ahead of the situation, even with a weapon pointed at her. You're going to shoot me, she said. Not a question, not fear, just a statement of fact said with the same tone someone might use to comment on the weather. You assaulted a federal officer. You're a threat to airport security. So you're going to shoot me in the middle of an airport, in front of hundreds of witnesses, on camera, because I removed your hand from my arm when you grabbed me without cause. Because you're a threat. What threat? Zara's voice remained steady, but there was something underneath now, something sharp. I'm standing still. My hands are visible. I'm not reaching for anything. I'm not making any aggressive moves. How exactly am I threatening you right now, Officer Caldwell? Ryan's finger moved to the trigger. The weapon felt heavy in his hand, hot, like it was burning his palm. Around him, passengers were screaming, running, dropping to the ground. Parents threw themselves over children. A woman near the Starbucks knocked over a table in her panic, coffee and pastries scattering. An elderly man with a cane tried to run and stumbled, falling hard. But in the bubble of space around Zara and Ryan, everything felt frozen in amber, crystallized, like time had stopped and the whole world was holding its breath. Davis had his weapon drawn too now, but he wasn't pointing it at Zara. He was pointing it at Ryan, his hands shaking, tears streaming down his face. Ryan, please, Davis said, his voice breaking. Please don't do this. You're my partner. You're my friend. Don't make me watch this. Just put it down. We can fix this. We can explain it. Just put it down and we'll figure it out together. 6 more airport police officers arrived, weapons drawn, trying to understand who the threat was. They formed a loose perimeter, but their guns were pointed at Ryan now, not at Zara. Lower your weapon, Caldwell, Martinez said, her voice hard as steel. That's a direct order. You have 5 seconds to comply. 5, 4. Put your hands behind your head, Ryan said to Zara, ignoring Martinez completely. Last chance before I fire. Zara's hands moved slowly, but not toward her head. They moved toward her blazer's inner pocket. "Don't!" Ryan screamed, his voice cracking with strain. "Don't reach! I will shoot you! I swear to God, I will shoot you!" "I'm reaching for my identification," Zara said clearly, loudly enough for every phone and every witness and every camera to hear. "I'm going to show you something you need to see before you make a mistake that destroys your life and ends mine." I'm moving slowly. I'm not reaching for a weapon. I'm reaching for identification. Hands where I can see them. But Zara's hand kept moving, sliding into her jacket with deliberate glacial slowness. Her fingers disappeared into the fabric. Martinez was yelling into her radio, calling for backup, calling for supervisors, calling for anyone who could stop what was about to happen. Davis was pleading with Ryan, begging him to lower the weapon. Other passengers were screaming. Alarms were going off. The entire terminal was chaos. But Ryan's entire world had narrowed to Zara's hand disappearing into her jacket. "I'm warning you," Ryan's voice was shrill, now panicked. "I will shoot. I will shoot you right now." Zara's hand emerged holding a leather credential case. She held it up slowly, making sure everyone could see. It wasn't a weapon, making sure every camera caught the moment. "Don't move," Ryan commanded, but his voice had lost its certainty. "I'm showing you my identification," Zara said, her voice cutting through the chaos with absolute authority. "The identification I tried to show you before you escalated this situation beyond repair. The identification that's going to make you realize just how badly you've miscalculated today." She flipped the case open with a practiced motion. Even from several feet away, even with his vision tunneled by adrenaline and fear and rage, Ryan could see the badge. Federal, official, unmistakable. The eagle and shield gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "My name is Special Agent Zara Mitchell," she said, projecting her voice so everyone could hear. "I'm with the Federal Bureau of Investigation Chicago Field Office. I'm on active assignment investigating weapons trafficking through this airport. And you, Officer Ryan Caldwell, just pulled a weapon on a federal agent." The words hit Ryan like a physical blow to the chest. FBI, federal agent, active assignment. His mind reeled, trying to process, trying to understand, trying to find some way this wasn't happening. "You're lying," he said, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew she wasn't. The badge was real. He could see the holographic security features, the official seal, the identification number. "I'm not lying. My credentials are genuine. My badge number is 2847. Call it in. Verify it. Contact Special Agent in Charge Marcus Webb at the Chicago Field Office. But do it after you lower your weapon before this situation becomes even worse than it already is." Martinez was already on her radio, her voice urgent. "Dispatch, I need immediate verification on FBI badge number 2847, Special Agent Zara Mitchell, Priority 1. And get me the Chicago FBI Field Office on the line now." Static crackled. Seconds stretched like hours. Then a voice came back. "Stand by for verification." Around them, the entire checkpoint had emptied, except for the officers and a few passengers too paralyzed by fear to run. More airport police were arriving by the second weapons drawn. 8 officers now had their guns trained on Ryan. "Lower your weapon, Caldwell," Martinez said, her voice like ice. "Right now. That's a direct order. You have 3 seconds. 3, 2. But Ryan couldn't move, couldn't think. If Zara was FBI, if she was really FBI, then everything he'd just done, the stop the questioning, the confiscated phone, the database warning he'd ignored, the grabbing the weapon, all of it was documented. All of it was illegal. All of it was career-ending, at minimum potentially criminal. The weight of realization crushed down on him like a physical force. "You should have identified yourself," he said weakly, grasping for any justification, any lifeline. "I wasn't required to. I was flying as a civilian. I committed no crime. You had no probable cause to stop me. You had no legal justification to detain me. You had no reason to grab me. And you certainly had no reason to draw your weapon. You were acting suspicious. I was acting normal. You stopped me because you saw a black woman who was confident, who knew her rights, who didn't cower when you tried to intimidate her. And you couldn't handle it. The truth of her words cut deeper than any blade. Ryan wanted to deny it, wanted to argue, but somewhere in the core of his being, past all the justifications and rationalizations and excuses he knew, he'd stopped her because something about her confidence, her poise, her refusal to be diminished, had triggered every insecurity he carried. And now he'd pulled a weapon on a federal agent because his ego couldn't handle being wrong. Martinez's radio crackled with the voice of dispatch. Badge number 2847 confirmed. Special Agent Zara Mitchell, FBI Chicago Field Office. Currently on active assignment. Classification level cannot disclose. Advised treating as federal law enforcement with full authority. The confirmation settled over the scene like a death sentence. Ryan's hand started to shake. The weapon wobbled in his grip, the barrel dipping and rising as his muscles betrayed him. Caldwell, last warning, Martinez said, and there was something almost like pity in her voice now. Lower your weapon or we will take you down. I don't want to do this, but you're pointing a gun at a federal agent. You have 2 seconds. Lower it now. Ryan looked around. 8 officers with weapons trained on him. Davis was crying openly now, his gun still pointed at his partner. His friend, the man he'd worked beside for 3 years. Passengers huddled behind pillars and counters, phones recording everything, broadcasting it live to millions. He was the threat. He was the danger. In trying to prove his authority, he'd become the very thing he was supposed to protect people from. Ryan, please, Davis said one more time, his voice breaking. Please, I don't want to see you die today. Put it down, just put it down. Ryan's hands started to lower. His muscles were moving on their own self-preservation, finally overriding rage and fear. The weapon drooped toward the floor. It was over. He'd lost everything, but at least he'd be alive. At least he could. Then Zara shifted her weight, just slightly, just a tiny movement as she prepared to step back to give him space to surrender safely. And Ryan's nervous system flooded with adrenaline, his finger already on the trigger. His entire body primed for threat response, interpreted that small motion as aggression. His finger clenched. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed terminal. The recoil jerked his arm upward, the muzzle flash blinding. And Zara, who'd been standing perfectly still, who'd been trying to de-escalate, even as Ryan spiraled, spun backward from the impact and hit the ground. For one crystalline second, nobody moved. The shot echoed off the walls, bouncing through the terminal like thunder rolling across a plain. Then chaos erupted in a wave. Martinez tackled Ryan from the side with brutal efficiency, driving him to the ground. His weapon skittered across the polished floor, spinning away. Other officers piled on top of him, shouting commands that overlapped into meaningless noise. Someone's knee pressed into his spine. Hands wrenched his arms behind his back with enough force that something popped in his shoulder. Metal handcuffs bit into his wrists, ratcheting so tight they cut off circulation. Davis was screaming something Ryan couldn't process through the ringing in his ears. His voice was high and broken, the sound of a man watching his entire world collapse. And on the floor, several feet away, Zara lay on her side, blood spreading across her left shoulder in a dark stain that looked black under the fluorescent lights. Her eyes were open, conscious, aware, but her face had gone pale. "Officer down," someone yelled, which was wrong because Zara wasn't an officer. She was an agent, she was FBI, and Ryan had shot her. He'd shot a federal agent. He'd shot a federal agent in the middle of Chicago O'Hare International Airport in front of hundreds of witnesses with their phones recording every second. His career wasn't just over. His life was over. Paramedics materialized from somewhere, their bright uniforms cutting through the chaos. They dropped to their knees beside Zara, hands already moving with practiced efficiency. A young woman with her blonde hair pulled back into a tight bun pressed gauze to the wound, while her partner, an older black man with gray in his beard, checked her pulse and pupils. Pulse is strong, 120 and steady. She's conscious and alert. Gunshot wound to the left shoulder, entry and exit visible, through and through. Looks like it missed the subclavian artery. We need a stretcher and immediate transport. But Zara was talking, her voice weak but clear, cutting through the chaos with the same authority she'd maintained throughout. "No hospital, not yet. Need to contact my handler. Active operation. Cannot compromise the investigation." "Ma'am, you've been shot. You need medical attention right now." "I'm FBI, active assignment. This wound is not immediately life-threatening. I need to make contact before I'm transported. Call Special Agent in Charge Marcus Webb, Chicago Field Office. Tell him Nightingale is blown. Tell him we need Protocol 7 implemented immediately." The paramedics exchanged glances. The woman pulled out her phone dialing, while her partner continued pressure on the wound. Ryan watched it all from the ground, his face pressed against the cold floor, officers still pinning him down even though he'd stopped resisting. He could taste blood in his mouth from biting his tongue during the tackle. His shoulders ached from the cuffs. His ribs hurt where Martinez's knee had driven into them, but none of that compared to the crushing weight of understanding what he'd just done, what he'd destroyed, what he'd become. As they hauled him to his feet, roughly forcing him toward the security office, Ryan craned his neck to see Zara. She was surrounded by paramedics, now pressure being applied to her wound IV already being started in her right arm. But she wasn't screaming, wasn't crying. She was giving calm, clear instructions about her phone, her bag, the notification protocols that needed to be followed. Still in control, even with a bullet wound in her shoulder. Still professional, even though Ryan had tried to kill her. Their eyes met across the checkpoint for just a moment, and in Zara's gaze Ryan saw something that hurt worse than any physical injury. Not hatred, not rage, not even pain. Pity. She pitied him. This woman he'd shot, whose life he'd tried to end, whose federal investigation he'd just destroyed, looked at him with pity. "I'm sorry," Ryan tried to say, but the words came out as a choked sob, barely coherent. "I didn't mean, I didn't know, I swear I didn't." But it didn't matter what he'd meant, or what he'd known, or what he'd intended. He'd pulled the trigger. The bullet had found its target. And there was no taking that back. No rewind button. No second chance. As they dragged him into the security office and slammed the door behind him, Ryan heard the paramedics calling for immediate transport. He heard Martinez on the radio reporting an officer-involved shooting, requesting FBI notifications securing the scene as a federal crime scene. He heard his life, his career, his family, his freedom, his future, everything he'd built over 43 years crumbling with every word. And underneath it all, he heard that one terrible truth echoing in his skull, like a bell that would never stop ringing. She'd been right. From the very beginning, she'd been right. He'd targeted her because of her race. He'd escalated because she wouldn't submit. He'd grabbed her because she'd questioned his authority. He'd drawn his weapon because she'd made him feel small. And when she'd tried one last time to show him the truth, when she'd tried to give him one final chance to step back from the edge, he'd shot her anyway. Because deep down in the place Ryan didn't like to examine, he knew exactly why he'd stopped Zara Mitchell. And it had nothing to do with security or training or experience or gut instinct. It had everything to do with a black woman refusing to know her place. The door locked behind him with a sound like a coffin closing. Ryan collapsed into a chair, his cuffed hands useless behind his back, and waited for his world to end. Outside in the terminal, yellow crime scene tape went up. FBI agents in windbreakers arrived, flashing credentials, taking over the investigation. Airport security reviewed footage from a dozen different cameras. Passengers gave statements, their videos already going viral with millions of views. And at the center of it all, a pool of blood slowly spreading across the polished terminal floor. Evidence of what happened when authority became tyranny, when prejudice became violence, when ego became attempted murder. Ryan Caldwell had worn a badge for 15 years. He'd thought it made him special, made him powerful, made him important. Instead, it had made him a cautionary tale. And somewhere in an ambulance racing toward Northwestern Memorial Hospital, lights and sirens screaming, Zara Mitchell was already planning her testimony, already preparing to make sure that no one, not Ryan Caldwell, not any officer, not any person with a badge ever made his mistakes again. The war against corruption wasn't over. It had only just begun. And Officer Ryan Caldwell had just become its first casualty. But what neither Ryan nor Zara knew was that 3 men in gray suits had watched the entire confrontation from different positions in the terminal. They'd seen Zara's badge revealed. They'd seen her shot. They'd seen her loaded into an ambulance. And they'd made their calls. The network knew. The trafficking ring knew. Agent Mitchell's cover was completely blown, and Protocol 7 meant only one thing: eliminate all threats. The game had changed, and the real danger was only beginning. The ambulance screamed through Chicago traffic, its siren wailing like a wounded animal. Inside, Zara Mitchell lay strapped to a gurney, her shoulder wrapped in thick bandages already soaking through with blood. The paramedic, the young woman with blonde hair, adjusted the IV drip while her partner navigated the chaos of Friday afternoon gridlock. "Blood pressure's dropping," the woman said, her voice tight. 110/60 and falling. "How far to Northwestern?" her partner called from the driver's seat. 8 minutes in this traffic, maybe 6 if I can get through. Zara's eyes fluttered open. "My phone! Where's my phone?" "Ma'am, you need to stay still. You've lost a lot of blood." "My phone, now." Despite the weakness in her voice, the command was unmistakable. The paramedic hesitated, then reached into the evidence bag secured beside the gurney. She pulled out Zara's iPhone. The screen cracked from hitting the terminal floor. "You really shouldn't—" Zara took it with her right hand, her left arm completely immobilized. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it. 17 missed calls, all from the same number, Marcus Webb, her handler. She hit redial. He answered before the first ring finished. "Jesus Christ, Zara, I've been calling for 20 minutes, are you?" "I'm alive, shot in the shoulder. En route to Northwestern. How bad is it?" Webb's voice went cold. Professional. "How bad is what?" "Don't play games, Marcus. My cover's blown. Every phone in that terminal recorded my badge. It's already viral. How compromised is the operation?" Silence on the other end, the kind of silence that meant everything had gone to hell. "Marcus, talk to me." "We've intercepted 3 encrypted communications in the last 15 minutes, all from burner phones traced to locations near O'Hare. The network knows. They're calling it Nightingale Down. They know you're FBI. They know you were investigating them. And Zara, they know which hospital you're going to." The paramedic watched Zara's face go even paler. "Ma'am, your heart rate just spiked. I need you to stay calm." But Zara wasn't listening. Her mind was racing, running through protocols, calculating angles, assessing threats. "How long until they move?" "Unknown. Could be minutes, could be hours. We're scrambling a protection detail, but Chicago PD is stretched thin with a protest downtown. FBI sending agents, but they're 20 minutes out. You're vulnerable right now." "Reroute the ambulance. Take me to—" "Negative. You need surgery. That bullet nicked something. You keep bleeding like this, you'll be dead in an hour. Northwestern's our only option." Zara closed her eyes. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to disappear. But her body wasn't cooperating. She could feel the blood loss sapping her strength with every heartbeat. "Then send everything you have. Lock down that hospital, and Marcus find out who Caldwell ran through the database. Someone in the system warned him I was classified. That warning should have made him back off. Instead, it made him escalate. Why? You think he was working with them? I think someone wanted me exposed. Caldwell was just stupid enough to be useful." Webb swore under his breath. "I'll pull his access logs. But Zara, right now, I need you focused on survival. Get to the hospital, get into surgery, we'll handle the rest." "The shipment is gone. Moved up timeline by 6 hours. Left through gate 47 30 minutes ago while you were bleeding on the terminal floor. Private charter to Dubai. We missed it." The words hit like a physical blow. 6 months of work. 6 months of building cover, cultivating sources, tracking movements. All of it destroyed in 30 minutes because Ryan Caldwell couldn't handle a confident black woman. How much did we lose? $40 million in stolen military tech, drone guidance systems, encrypted communications equipment, night vision prototypes, all of it bound for black market auction in the Middle East. And Zara, the manifest, listed a dozen names we've been tracking. This wasn't just weapons. This was intelligence. Someone's selling our secrets. Who authorized the charter? That's the problem. Authorization came from inside TSA. Supervisor-level clearance. Rush approval citing diplomatic immunity. Diplomatic immunity for weapons. Fake State Department credentials. Professional-grade forgeries. Whoever's running this network, they've got reach. Federal reach. The ambulance swerved hard, throwing Zara against the restraints. She bit back a cry as her shoulder exploded with fresh pain. "Ma'am, I really need you to hang up," the paramedic insisted. "Your vitals are getting worse." "One more minute." Zara's voice was barely above a whisper now. Marcus listened carefully. 3 men in gray suits, Terminal 3 positioned at different points. They were watching me before Caldwell made his move. After the shooting, I saw one of them make a call. 30 seconds later, he disappeared. Track the security footage. Find those men. Descriptions. Average everything. That's the point. They're professionals. Former military, probably. The way they stood, the way they scanned the crowd, these aren't amateurs. And Marcus, they knew which bed I'd be in. They knew about the backup weapon protocol. "We have a leak." "What are you talking about?" "Just trust me. We have a leak somewhere in the Chicago field office. Someone's feeding them information. That's how they knew I was there. That's how they knew to move the shipment early. Find the leak or I'm dead." "Zara." The phone went dead as the paramedic finally pulled it from her hand. "Enough. You're going into hypovolemic shock. I need you to focus on breathing. Slow and deep. Stay with me." But Zara's eyes were already closing, her body shutting down from blood loss and shock. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was the paramedic's urgent voice. "She's crashing. Get us to that hospital now. Move." The ambulance surged forward, weaving through traffic with desperate speed. Behind them, a black sedan pulled out from a side street and followed at a careful distance. Inside, 2 men in dark clothes checked their weapons and waited for their moment. The hunter had become the hunted. Northwestern Memorial Hospital's emergency entrance erupted into controlled chaos as the ambulance screamed to a stop. Doctors and nurses poured out a trauma team already scrubbed and ready. They had Zara out of the ambulance and onto a rolling gurney in seconds, hands moving with practiced efficiency as they assessed her condition. Gunshot wound to the left shoulder through and through, significant blood loss, BP dropping, pulse thready. The trauma surgeon, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair, cut through the noise. "Get her to OR3 immediately. Type and cross for 4 units. Someone call vascular. If that subclavion's nicked, we need them standing by." They rushed her through the automatic doors, fluorescent lights streaking overhead, as the gurney raced down corridors. Zara drifted in and out of consciousness, catching fragments of conversation, feeling hands on her needles, piercing skin tubes being inserted. "FBI agent," someone was saying. "Active duty. Someone notify." "Already done. Federal protection en route." "How long?" 15 minutes. The surgeon swore. "Too long. Get hospital security up here. Lock down this wing. Nobody gets in without credentials. Nobody." They burst through OR doors, the room bright and cold. Hands lifted Zara from the gurney onto the operating table. Someone placed a mask over her face. "Count backward from 10, a voice said. 10, Zara whispered. 9, 8, and then nothing. In the waiting room 4 floors below, Marcus Webb arrived with 3 FBI agents, all of them armed and scanning the crowd with professional paranoia. Webb flashed his credentials at the security desk. "Special Agent in Charge, Marcus Webb, Chicago Field Office. I need to speak to whoever's in charge of security for this hospital, right now." The security guard, a heavy-set man in his 60s named Rodriguez, didn't even blink. "Already been briefed, Agent Webb. Got the call 10 minutes ago. We've locked down the surgical wing, posted guards at all entrances, and pulled security footage from the last hour." "Good, show me." Rodriguez led them to the security office, a cramped room filled with monitors, showing dozens of camera angles throughout the hospital. He pulled up footage from the emergency entrance, rewinding to the moment Zara's ambulance arrived. "There," Webb said, pointing. "That black sedan, 3 cars back. See it?" Rodriguez enhanced the image. A black Dodge Charger, windows tinted, no front plate visible. It had pulled into the drop-off area 90 seconds after the ambulance disgorging 2 passengers before driving away. "Can you get a better angle?" Rodriguez switched cameras, catching the 2 men as they entered through the main doors. Both wore dark clothes, jeans, black jackets, baseball caps pulled low. Their hands were in their pockets, their heads down, avoiding cameras, with the practiced ease of people who knew how surveillance worked. "They're professionals," one of Webb's agents said. "Look at the way they move. Military bearing, probably former spec ops." "Where did they go?" Rodriguez tracked them through multiple cameras. The men split up inside the lobby, one heading toward the elevators, the other toward the stairs. Both were making their way upward. "Toward the surgical wing," Webb said. "They're coming for her right now." He grabbed his radio. "All units, we have 2 hostile targets in the building, both headed toward OR floor. Intercept and detain. Consider armed and dangerous. Do not let them reach the surgical wing." Webb turned to Rodriguez. "How many ways into that wing?" 4. Main elevator, bank service elevator, 2 stairwells. "Not enough agents. We need Chicago PD backup. Now." "On their way, but they're coming from—" An explosion rocked the building. Not large, but enough to rattle the windows and set off alarms throughout the hospital. Webb's radio erupted with frantic voices. "Bomb in the parking structure south side, level 3. We've got a fire on the ground floor west corridor. Evacuate or shelter in place." Webb's face went white. "It's a diversion. They're creating chaos to cover their approach. Rodriguez locked down every entrance to the surgical wing. Do it now." But even as he said it, Webb knew they were too late. Professionals didn't set off bombs without a plan. They'd already accounted for every response, every countermeasure. They were already inside. On the 6th floor in OR3, the surgical team worked with focused intensity. The trauma surgeon had exposed Zara's shoulder wound, tracing the bullet's path through muscle and tissue. The damage was significant, but manageable. The bullet had missed the major arteries by millimeters. "Lucky," the surgeon murmured. "Half an inch to the right, and she'd have bled out in the terminal." "Dr. Morrison," one of the nurses said, "did you hear that explosion?" "I heard it. Keep focus. We're not stopping for anything short of the building collapsing." But outside the OR in the sterile corridor, a hospital security guard named Patterson heard footsteps approaching from the service elevator. 2 men in dark clothes moving fast, moving with purpose. He stepped forward, hand on his radio. "Gentlemen, this area is restricted. You need to—" The first man moved so fast, Patterson barely registered it. A hand clamped over his mouth. Another struck his neck with surgical precision. Patterson dropped like a puppet with cut strings, unconscious before he hit the ground. The second man pulled out a suppressed pistol, checking the corridor. Empty. They'd timed it perfectly. The explosion had drawn most of security downward, leaving the upper floors vulnerable. "OR3, the first man said, his voice flat and professional. 30 seconds to target." They moved down the corridor toward the operating room where Zara Mitchell lay unconscious and defenseless. But they weren't the only ones moving. From the north stairwell, 2 Chicago PD officers burst through the doors, weapons drawn. From the south stairwell, FBI agents emerged. And from the main elevator, Marcus Webb and his team arrived at a dead run. The assassins saw them simultaneously. For one frozen second, everyone stood perfectly still. Then the corridor erupted into chaos. The first assassin fired twice, suppressed rounds punching into the wall behind the CPD officers as they dove for cover. The second assassin turned and fired at Webb's team, forcing them back into the elevator alcove. Glass shattered. Walls exploded in puffs of drywall dust. "Do not let them reach that ore!" Webb screamed, returning fire. But the assassins weren't trying to reach it anymore. Their window had closed. They were professionals, they knew, when a mission was blown. Instead of pushing forward, they retreated toward the service elevator, laying down covering fire as they moved. One of Webb's agents, a young man named Chen, broke from cover and sprinted toward them. The first assassin's next shot caught him in the vest, the impact spinning him around and slamming him into the wall. He went down hard, but alive, gasping for breath through cracked ribs. The assassins made it to the service elevator. The doors were still open from their arrival. They backed inside, weapons trained on the corridor, and hit the button. "No!" Webb charged forward, firing as he ran, but the doors slid closed just as he reached them. Through the narrowing gap, Webb locked eyes with the first assassin for just a moment. The man smiled, actually smiled, like this was all a game. Then he was gone, the elevator descending toward the chaos below. Webb slammed his fist against the closed doors, then spun toward his agents. "Ground floor, cut them off before they reach the parking structure." But even as he said it, Webb knew the truth. Professionals didn't plan operations with only one exit. Those men were already gone, vanished into the confusion of the bomb threat and the evacuation and the hundreds of panicked people flooding the streets. They'd failed. Not completely. Zara was still alive, still in surgery, still protected. But the message had been sent loud and clear. The network could reach her anywhere, and they would keep trying until she was dead. Inside OR3, Dr. Morrison looked up as hospital security burst through the doors, weapons drawn, shouting about active shooters and lockdowns. She didn't even flinch. "Get out of my operating room. We're in the middle of surgery. I don't care if the building's on fire. I'm not losing this patient. Now get out." The security guards retreated, but 2 FBI agents took up positions just outside the doors. The operation continued, hands working to repair the damage one bullet had caused, while outside the walls a war was beginning. Marcus Webb stood in the corridor, his weapon still in his hand, his heart still racing. He pulled out his phone and made a call to FBI headquarters in Washington. "This is SAC Webb, Chicago Field Office. I need to speak to the Deputy Director. Yes, it's urgent. No, it can't wait." While he waited for the connection, he looked at the blood on the floor where Patterson, the security guard, had fallen. The man was alive but unconscious, taken down by professionals who could have easily killed him but chose not to. That told Webb something important. These weren't just hired guns. These were operators with rules of engagement, with protocols, with training that said only kill when necessary. That meant military or intelligence background. That meant someone with serious resources was running this network. The deputy director came on the line. "Webb, what's happening in Chicago?" "Sir, we have a major situation. Agent Mitchell's cover is blown, she's been shot, and we just repelled an assassination attempt at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. The weapons trafficking network we've been investigating isn't just criminals. It's sophisticated, well-funded, and connected. They have access to federal databases, TSA clearances, and professional operators. I need authorization for a full task force. I need resources. And sir, I need it now because they're not going to stop until Mitchell is dead." "How bad is Mitchell's condition?" "In surgery. Doctors say she'll survive if we can keep her alive long enough." "And the TSA officer who shot her?" "In custody. Airport holding. He's cooperating, but I don't think he knows anything useful. He was just a racist idiot who got played." The deputy director was quiet for a moment. "Authorization granted. You'll have 20 agents by morning. Cyber Division will trace those communications you intercepted. But Webb, this goes higher than Chicago. That diplomatic immunity authorization. It was authenticated through State Department systems, real credentials. Whoever's running this has reach into federal government." Webb's jaw tightened. "How high?" "Unknown, but high enough to be very dangerous. Watch your back, Marcus. If they can reach Mitchell in a hospital surrounded by FBI agents, they can reach anyone." The call ended. Webb stood in the empty corridor, the smell of gunpowder still hanging in the air, and tried to process what he'd just learned. This wasn't just about weapons trafficking anymore. This was about corruption that reached into the highest levels of government. This was about federal employees selling out their country for money. This was bigger than anything the Chicago field office had ever handled. And at the center of it, bleeding on an operating table, was a woman who'd sacrificed everything to expose it. 2 hours later, Dr. Morrison emerged from OR3, her scrubs spattered with blood, her face exhausted but satisfied. Webb stood immediately. "She made it through surgery. The damage was extensive but repairable. No nerve damage, no vascular compromise. She's incredibly lucky another inch to the right, and we'd be having a very different conversation. We're moving her to ICU, but she's stable." "When can I talk to her?" "Not tonight. She'll be sedated for at least 12 hours. Her body needs time to recover from the shock and blood loss. Tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. I need to post agents in her room, 24-hour protection." "Already arranged. Hospital administration has been very cooperative." Morrison paused, studying Webb's face. "Agent Webb, whoever did this to her, they're not going to stop, are they?" "No, they're not." "Then I hope you have enough people because they came very close today." And next time, they might succeed. Morrison walked away, leaving Webb alone with his thoughts and his fears and the weight of responsibility for keeping Zara Mitchell alive long enough to testify. In a penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, a man in an expensive suit answered his phone on the first ring. Status: Target survived surgery, heavy FBI presence at the hospital. We couldn't reach her. The man gazed out at the city lights reflecting off the dark water. Acceptable. Today was reconnaissance. Now we know their protocols, their response times, their vulnerabilities. Should we try again? Not yet. Let them relax. Let them think they've won. In 3 days when their guard drops, we move. And this time, Agent Mitchell won't survive. What about the TSA Officer Caldwell? The man smiled. Leave him. He's served his purpose. Let him rot in prison knowing he destroyed a federal investigation and exposed one of their best agents. His suffering will be punishment enough. And the shipment? Safely in Dubai by now. 24 hours until auction. By the time FBI realizes what we've taken, it'll be in a dozen different countries. They've lost. They just don't know it yet. He hung up and poured himself a scotch, savoring the victory. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Zara Mitchell would die. The investigation would die with her, and the network would continue operating hidden in plain sight, selling America's secrets to the highest bidder. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Zara Mitchell had spent 6 months preparing for exactly this scenario. She had contingencies, she had insurance, she had evidence hidden in places no one would think to look. And she had something else, absolute determination to see this through, even if it killed her. The war was just beginning, and neither side was ready for what came next. In the ICU, surrounded by monitors and machines, Zara Mitchell's eyes fluttered open for just a moment. Her lips moved, whispering something only she could hear. Not over yet. Then darkness took her again, pulling her down into drugged sleep. But in her mind, she was already planning, already calculating, already preparing for the fight ahead. Because Special Agent Zara Mitchell didn't know how to quit. And before this was over, everyone involved in this conspiracy would learn that shooting her wasn't the end of their problems. It was just the beginning. Zara's eyes opened to white ceiling tiles and the steady beep of monitors. Her mouth tasted like copper and antiseptic. Every breath sent fire through her left shoulder, but she was alive. That was something. Welcome back. Marcus Webb sat in a chair beside her bed, his suit rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Probably hadn't. How long? Zara's voice came out as a rasp. 18 hours since surgery. You've been in and out, mostly out. Doctors had you pretty heavily sedated. Zara tried to sit up. Pain exploded through her shoulder and she gasped, falling back against the pillows. Easy, Webb said, standing. You took a bullet. You're not running any marathons today. The shooters. At the hospital. Did you get them? Webb's expression darkened. No, they vanished in the chaos. Professional extraction. We're analyzing security footage, but they knew every camera angle, every blind spot. Former military for sure, probably contractors. They'll try again. I know. That's why you've got 4 agents on this floor and 2 more in the hallway. Nobody gets near you without going through them. Zara closed her eyes. 18 hours. The shipment was long gone by now, probably already sold. 6 months of work destroyed in one afternoon because Ryan Caldwell couldn't handle being questioned by a black woman. I want to see him, she said. Who Caldwell? The officer who shot me. I want to see him. Webb shook his head. That's not a good idea. He's in federal custody facing multiple charges. His lawyer would have a field day if you showed up for a visit. I don't care about his lawyer. I need to know if he was working with them or if he was just useful. Zara, the man tried to kill you. The man succeeded in destroying my cover and my investigation. If he was deliberately placed at that checkpoint, if someone manipulated him into stopping me, then we need to know. Because that means the network has deeper reach than we thought. Webb was quiet for a moment, considering. His access logs show he ran your ID through the database 13 minutes before the confrontation. The system flagged you as classified, warned him not to detain you, gave him a direct number to call. He ignored all of it. Why would he do that? According to his statement, he thought you were suspicious, said something about the way you moved, the way you answered questions, standard profiling bullshit dressed up as security protocol. Or someone told him to look for those exact things. Someone primed him to see a threat where there wasn't one. Webb pulled out his tablet, swiping through files. We pulled his phone records, 47 calls in the last month to a number registered to a prepaid burner. The calls lasted 30 seconds to 2 minutes, always at night, always from his personal cell. Zara's eyes sharpened, despite the pain medication dulling her senses. Someone was running him. Maybe. Or maybe he was just a racist cop who got played without knowing it. The psych eval from TSA shows a pattern of aggressive behavior toward passengers of color. 3 previous complaints all dismissed. The union protected him every time. But the timing, Marcus. The shipment moved early. I got exposed. The network vanished their product before we could intercept. That's not coincidence. I agree. But proving Caldwell was a willing participant versus an unwitting tool is going to be difficult. He's sticking to his story, that he was doing his job, that you assaulted him first, that he feared for his safety. I never touched him until he grabbed my arm. I know. We've got 24 videos proving that. But his lawyer's already spinning it, claiming you used your federal status to intimidate him, that you should have identified yourself immediately, that airport security officers are trained to respond to perceived threats with appropriate force. Zara laughed, the sound bitter. Appropriate force. He shot an unarmed woman. After you put him on the ground in front of everyone. His lawyer's claiming humiliation, loss of control, temporary psychological break. They're going for diminished capacity, maybe even PTSD from years of dealing with difficult passengers. That's insane. That's America. White cop shoots black woman, even a federal agent, and suddenly everyone wants to understand his trauma, his fear, his perspective. Meanwhile, you're the one with a bullet hole in your shoulder. The anger in Webb's voice was palpable. Zara had worked with him for 3 years and rarely heard him lose his professional detachment. This case was getting to him. What about the leak? Zara asked. You said someone inside the bureau is feeding information to the network. Webb's expression went carefully neutral, too neutral. Marcus, what aren't you telling me? He set down the tablet and leaned back in his chair. The encrypted communications we intercepted. Cyber Division traced them to a relay server in Eastern Europe, bounced through 6 countries. Whoever sent them knows how to cover their tracks. But the timing of the messages correlates exactly with internal FBI communications about your status, your location, your protection detail. Someone with access to our operational updates is passing information in real time. Zara felt ice in her stomach. How many people have that level of access? In Chicago, Field Office 12, including me. The words hung in the air between them. 12 suspects. One of them was betraying everything they'd sworn to protect. You think it's someone on my team, Zara said. I don't know what to think, but until we identify the leak, we can't trust anyone. Which is why you're staying in this hospital under heavy guard until we figure this out. Like hell I am. I'm the only one who knows all the details of this investigation. If there's a leak, I need to be part of finding it. You can barely sit up. Then prop me up with pillows. Marcus, listen to me. This network has been operating for at least 2 years. They've moved over $200 million in stolen military technology. They have federal credentials, TSA clearances, and now apparently an FBI source. This isn't just about catching criminals anymore. This is about national security. Webb stood and walked to the window, staring out at Chicago's skyline. The deputy director wants you pulled out. Witness protection until trial. New identity, new life, the whole program. No. Zara. I said no. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I spent 6 months building this case and I'm going to see it through. Even if it kills you. Especially if it kills me. Because if I die, at least the investigation continues. But if I disappear into witness protection, the case dies with me. The network wins. The leak stays hidden. and whoever's selling our country's secrets gets away with it. Webb turned back to face her. You're the most stubborn person I've ever met. That's why you recruited me. Despite everything, Webb smiled. Fair point. A knock on the door interrupted them. One of the FBI agents posted outside stuck his head in. Sir, there's a Detective Sarah Chen from Chicago PD here. Says she needs to speak with Agent Mitchell about the shooting. Webb frowned. We already gave statements to CPD. What does she want? She says it's about Officer Caldwell. Says she has information we need to hear. Webb and Zara exchanged glances. Send her in, Zara said. Detective Chen was a woman in her early 40s, Asian American with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She carried a tablet and a thick file folder. Agent Mitchell, I'm sorry to bother you while you're recovering, but I think Officer Caldwell's shooting wasn't as random as everyone thinks. Explain, Webb said. Chen set the tablet on Zara's bed, pulling up photos. 3 weeks ago, a TSA officer named David Torres was found dead in his apartment. Officially ruled a suicide. Single gunshot to the head, his service weapon, no signs of forced entry. I don't see the connection, Webb said. Torres worked at O'Hare, same terminal as Caldwell, same shift rotation. And according to his personnel file, Torres had filed a complaint 2 months before his death alleging corruption within TSA. Said certain officers were accepting payments to expedite security screening for specific passengers. Zara sat up straighter, ignoring the pain. Did he name anyone? No. The complaint was vague. No specific allegations, no proof. TSA investigated for 2 weeks and closed it as unfounded. Torres was reprimanded for making false accusations. Then 3 weeks later, he's dead. And you think it wasn't suicide? Zara said. I think Torres saw something he shouldn't have. I think he tried to report it through official channels and got shut down. And I think someone decided he was too much of a risk to leave alive. Webb was already on his phone pulling up files. Torres David, age 32, 8 years with TSA. Clean record except for that complaint. Medical examiner ruled death consistent with self-inflicted gunshot wound. Case closed. Look at the autopsy photos, Chen said, swiping through images on her tablet. Webb and Zara studied them. Torres sitting in a chair weapon in his right hand entry wound to his right temple exit wound on the left side. Blood spatter consistent with close-range discharge. What am I missing? Webb asked. Torres was left-handed, Chen said. His firearms qualification records show he shot left-handed. His signature is left-handed. Every photo we have of him shows him wearing his watch on his right wrist phone in his left pocket coffee cup held in his left hand. But he supposedly shot himself with his right hand. The implications hit Zara like a physical force. It was staged. I think so. I think someone killed Torres and made it look like suicide. And I think whoever did it has enough access to manipulate the investigation to influence the medical examiner to close the case before anyone looked too closely. Did Torres and Caldwell know each other? Zara asked. They worked the same checkpoint for 3 years. According to their supervisor, they were friendly. Not friends exactly, but cordial. They'd have coffee together, sometimes complain about management, typical coworker stuff. Webb was typing rapidly on his phone. I'm pulling Torres's phone records. If he and Caldwell were communicating about something sensitive. Already did that, Chen interrupted. 17 calls between them in the week before Torres died, including one that lasted 43 minutes, 3 days before his death. Then nothing. No calls, no texts, no contact. Because Caldwell knew what happened, Zara said. Torres told him about the corruption, told him what he'd seen, maybe even told him who was involved, and then Torres ended up dead. Which terrified Caldwell, Webb added, made him realize how dangerous this was. So he kept his mouth shut, kept his head down, pretended he didn't know anything. Until I showed up, Zara finished. Until his database check flagged me as federal, and suddenly he realized I was investigating the exact thing Torres had died reporting. So he panicked. Chen nodded. That's my theory. Caldwell didn't shoot you because he's racist. I mean, he probably is. That's a separate issue, but he shot you because he was scared. Scared that if the network found out he'd been in contact with a federal agent, he'd end up like Torres. So he attacked first, Webb said. Exposed you publicly, made himself look like the aggressor so the network would see him as useful, not a threat. Or he was being blackmailed, Zara said. They killed Torres as a warning. Then they told Caldwell to stop me or he'd be next. He had a wife, 2 kids. Maybe he thought exposing me would buy his family's safety. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. Ryan Caldwell wasn't just a racist cop. He was a terrified man caught between federal law enforcement and a criminal network willing to kill anyone who got in their way. "We need to talk to him again," Zara said. "Off the record, no lawyers, just me and him." "That's not," Webb started. "I know it's not protocol. I don't care. If Caldwell knows who killed Torres, if he knows who's running this network, he's the only leverage we have. And if he thinks I'm just another victim like him, maybe he'll talk." Chen cleared her throat. "There's one more thing. Torres's complaint mentioned something specific. He said certain high-value passengers were being moved through security with minimal screening. He called them VIPs, said they always traveled with diplomatic pouches that were never inspected." "Diplomatic pouches," Webb repeated. "That's how they're moving the weapons. Fake diplomatic credentials pouches that can't be searched under international law straight through security and onto private charters." "Torres must have opened one," Zara said. "Must have seen what was inside. That's why they killed him." Chen stood. "I'll get you access to Caldwell. Unofficial visit, no recording, no lawyers. But Agent Mitchell, if I'm right about this, then the people who killed Torres are the same people who tried to kill you at the hospital. And if they find out Caldwell's talking, they'll kill him too," Zara finished, "which means we need to move fast." After Chen left, Webb paced the room. "This is bigger than we thought. Federal employees, TSA officers, maybe even diplomatic staff. How deep does this go?" "Deep enough that they can fake State Department credentials and manipulate murder investigations. Deep enough that they have a source inside FBI. Deep enough that they moved $40 million in weapons through the busiest airport in America without anyone noticing." Until Torres noticed. "Until Torres noticed," Zara agreed. "And they killed him for it, just like they'll kill Caldwell if he talks, just like they'll keep trying to kill me until they succeed." Webb stopped pacing and looked at her. "You really want to do this, visit Caldwell?" "I have to. He's the only connection we have to whoever's running this network. And Marcus, if we don't stop them, Torres won't be the last person to die. This network isn't just stealing weapons. They're selling intelligence, compromising operations, putting agents at risk. How many more people have to die before we shut this down?" "When do you want to see him?" "As soon as I can walk without collapsing. Tomorrow, if possible." Webb nodded slowly. "I'll set it up. But Zara, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, I need to know you're prepared for what might happen. Caldwell shot you. You're asking me to put you in a room with the man who tried to kill you. I know exactly who I'll be in a room with. A scared man who made terrible choices because he thought it would protect his family. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I understand fear. And right now, fear might be the only thing that saves us all." The next morning, against her doctor's protests and Webb's better judgment, Zara was discharged from the hospital. 2 FBI agents flanked her as they moved her to an armored SUV. The drive to the federal detention center took 40 minutes through heavy traffic. Caldwell was being held in isolation for his own protection. Federal prosecutors were building a case that included assault on a federal officer, civil rights violations, and attempted murder. His lawyer had already filed motions claiming excessive prosecution, arguing that Caldwell was the real victim of federal overreach. They brought him into a small conference room, his hands cuffed, his face pale and drawn. He'd lost weight in just 2 days, his uniform replaced by orange detention scrubs. When he saw Zara, he flinched. "I didn't ask to see you," he said. "I know, I asked to see you." Webb started to object, but Zara held up a hand. "Give us 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. "Zara." 10 minutes, Marcus, please." Webb and the other agents left reluctantly, though Zara knew they'd be watching through the one-way glass. She lowered herself carefully into a chair across from Caldwell, her left arm still in a sling. "Why are you here?" Caldwell asked. His voice was hoarse, defeated. "Because I think you know something, and I think you're too scared to tell anyone." "I don't know what you're talking about." "David Torres, your co-worker, your friend, the one who died 3 weeks ago." Caldwell's face went white. "That was suicide. Everyone knows that. Everyone's wrong. Torres was murdered because he saw something he shouldn't have, and you know what it was because he told you." "I don't—" "He called you 17 times in the week before he died, including one call that lasted 43 minutes. You don't talk to someone for 43 minutes about the weather. He was scared. He was reaching out. And then he ended up dead." Caldwell's hands trembled. "I want my lawyer." "Your lawyer can't protect you from the people who killed Torres. Your lawyer can't stop them from coming after your family. But I can, if you help me." "I don't know anything." Zara leaned forward, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. "Yes, you do. Torres told you about the VIPs, about the diplomatic pouches, about the weapons being moved through your checkpoint. And when he died, you realized that talking would get you killed too. So you kept quiet. You hoped it would all go away." "You don't understand," Caldwell whispered. "You don't understand what these people are capable of." "Then tell me. Help me stop them. Because right now you're facing 20 years in federal prison for shooting me. But if you cooperate, if you tell me what Torres told you, I can make a deal. Reduced charges, protective custody for your family, a chance to actually survive this." Caldwell closed his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "They came to my house, 2 days after Torres died. 2 men in suits. They said they knew Torres had talked to me. They said they knew I was smart enough to keep my mouth shut. And then they showed me pictures." "Pictures of what?" "My kids, at school, at soccer practice, at my wife's work. They didn't say anything threatening. They didn't have to. The message was clear. Stay quiet, or everyone I love dies." "Who were they?" "I don't know. I'd never seen them before. They had federal IDs, but I couldn't read the agency. They moved like cops, but talked like military. Professional. Cold." "What did Torres tell you?" Caldwell opened his eyes, tears streaming down his face. "He said there was a network, TSA officers, customs agents, even some FBI. They were being paid to move shipments through security without inspection. Diplomatic pouches that supposedly contained embassy documents but actually held weapons technology intelligence. Torres opened one by accident during a random inspection, saw what was inside, and 3 days later he was dead." "Did he tell you who was running it?" "No. He said he didn't know. Said the payments came through anonymous accounts. Said he'd tried to report it, but his complaint got buried. Said he was going to the FBI next, going to blow the whole thing wide open." "And then they killed him to stop it." "And then they killed him," Caldwell repeated. "And they made sure I understood that the same thing would happen to me if I talked. So when you showed up, when my database check flagged you as federal, I panicked. I thought if they saw me expose you, if they saw me stop a federal agent investigating the airport, they'd know I was on their side, that I wasn't a threat. So you sacrificed me to save yourself. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't change anything. I know what I did was wrong, but I have kids. I have a family. I couldn't—" His voice broke. Zara sat back, processing everything. Caldwell wasn't evil. He was just a coward who'd made terrible choices because he was scared. But even cowards could be useful. "The men who came to your house, could you identify them?" "Maybe. I don't know. It was dark and I was terrified." "Did they leave anything, business cards, phone numbers, any way to contact them?" "No. But they said if I needed to reach them, I should leave a message at a specific locker at the airport. Locker 447 in Terminal 3. Said they'd check it every day." Zara stood, her mind already racing. A dead drop. Old-school tradecraft. That meant the network was paranoid about electronic surveillance, which made sense if they had an FBI source. But physical dead drops could be monitored, traced, exploited. "Thank you, Officer Caldwell. You might have just saved your life." "What happens to me now?" "That depends on how useful you continue to be. But if you cooperate fully, if you testify, if you help us take down this network, then maybe you get a second chance. Maybe your kids get to have a father who did the right thing, even if it took him too long to do it." Zara left the room, her shoulders screaming in protest, but her mind clear and focused. Webb was waiting in the hallway. "Did you hear all that?" "Every word. Locker 447. We can set up surveillance, see who accesses it." "No, we use it. We leave a message pretending to be Caldwell. We draw them out." "That's too dangerous. If they suspect, they already suspect. That's why they tried to kill me at the hospital. But they don't know what Caldwell told me. They don't know we've connected Torres's death to the network. We can use that uncertainty against them." Webb was already shaking his head. "You're still recovering from being shot. You can barely move your left arm. And you want to run an undercover operation against a network that's already tried to kill you twice. I don't just want to. I have to. Marcus, this is our only shot. If we wait, if we let them regroup, they'll disappear, change their methods, move their operation somewhere else, and everything Torres died for, everything I've sacrificed will be for nothing. The deputy director will never approve this. Then don't tell him. Not yet. Give me 48 hours. Let me set the trap. If it works, we get the network. If it doesn't, I'll go into witness protection without complaint." Webb looked at her for a long moment. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Maybe, but at least I'll die doing something that matters." "That's not as comforting as you think it is." "Despite everything," Zara smiled. "I know, but it's all I've got." They walked out of the detention center into bright afternoon sunlight. Zara breathed deeply, feeling the pain in her shoulder, but also feeling something else. Purpose, clarity. The hunt was back on, and this time she was going to finish it. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the man in the expensive suit overlooking Lake Michigan had just received a phone call that told him Zara Mitchell had visited Ryan Caldwell, a phone call that told him she'd learned about the dead drop, a phone call that meant it was time to accelerate the timeline, time to eliminate every loose end. Starting with Special Agent Zara Mitchell. The trap was set, but neither side knew who would be caught in it. The plan was simple, which made Webb nervous. Simple plans had a way of going catastrophically wrong when professionals were involved. But Zara insisted, and when Zara Mitchell insisted on something, moving her was like trying to redirect a freight train with your bare hands. They stood in the FBI surveillance van parked 3 blocks from O'Hare Terminal 3, watching monitors that showed 12 different camera angles. Locker 447 sat in clear view on 3 of them, a ordinary gray metal door, identical to hundreds of others lining the corridor near the baggage claim. "Caldwell's message goes in at 1400 hours, Webb said, checking his watch. "That's in 6 minutes. Once it's placed, we watch and wait." "How long do you think before someone checks it?" Zara asked. Her left arm was still in a sling, her face still pale from blood loss, but her eyes burned with focused intensity. "Could be hours, could be days. These people are careful. They're also desperate. They know I'm alive. They know I talked to Caldwell. They'll check that locker soon because they need to know what he's saying, what he's thinking, whether he's about to flip." Agent Chen, the young FBI tech running the surveillance equipment, adjusted his headset. "Message team is in position. Ready on your signal, sir." Webb looked at Zara one more time. "Last chance to call this off. We could do this with a controlled delivery, use one of our people." "No, it has to be authentic. Caldwell's handwriting, his phrasing, his fear. Anything else and they'll know it's a setup. And if they grab whoever picks up the message, then we follow them, track them back to whoever's running this network. Either way, we get closer to the truth." Webb nodded reluctantly and keyed his radio. "All units, this is Control. Execute placement in 60 seconds. Stay sharp. These targets are professionals and they will be watching for surveillance." Zara watched the monitors as Agent Torres, no relation to the dead TSA officer, just cruel coincidence, approached Locker 447, dressed in casual clothes, carrying a gym bag. He looked like any other traveler. He opened the locker with the key they'd obtained from building security, placed a folded piece of paper inside, closed the door, and walked away. The entire action took 8 seconds. The note written in Caldwell's shaky handwriting read, "They know about Torres. FBI agent asked about the VIPs and the diplomatic pouches. She knows about the network. I didn't tell her anything, but she's connecting the dots. What do? I'm scared they're going to kill me like they killed David. It was perfect bait. Desperate enough to be believable. Vague enough to prompt a response. Urgent enough to demand immediate action. Now they waited. 15 minutes passed. Terminal traffic flowed normally. Passengers rolling luggage, families saying goodbye, business travelers hurrying to their gates. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. Movement, Chen said, suddenly pointing to Monitor 4. Male, approximately 6 feet, dark jacket, baseball cap. He's approaching the locker bank, but not directly, doing a security check. They watched as the man, mid-30s, fit build, moving with controlled purpose, circled the area twice before approaching locker 447. He didn't open it immediately. Instead, he leaned against the adjacent wall, pulled out his phone, pretended to check messages while his eyes scanned the entire corridor. He's made at least 3 surveillance cameras, Webb muttered. Professional tradecraft. He knows we could be watching. The man pocketed his phone and opened locker 447, retrieved the note, read it quickly. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled out a lighter and burned the paper right there in the terminal, letting the ashes fall into a nearby trash can, destroying evidence immediately. "Son of a bitch," Webb said. "Chen, tell me we got facial recognition on him before he moves." "Running it now. Baseball cap is blocking most angles, but I'm trying to enhance. Got it. Image captured. Uploading to database." The man walked away with the same controlled pace, not hurried, not slow, just another traveler in a busy terminal. "Teams 1 and 3 maintain visual contact but stay back," Webb ordered. "Do not approach. Do not spook him. We need to see where he goes." Zara watched the monitors as their surveillance teams picked up the tale. The man walked through Terminal 3, took an escalator down to the ground transportation level, and exited through the main doors. Outside, he walked past the taxi stand, past the rideshare pickup area, and continued on foot toward the parking structure. "That's a long walk for someone who just picked up a message," Zara said. "He's checking for tails." "Team 1, where is he now?" "Entering parking structure, level 2 northwest section. Still on foot. He's in no hurry." They watched through body cameras as their agents followed at a distance. The man walked between parked cars, turned down a row, and stopped at a black SUV with tinted windows. He pulled out keys but didn't unlock the door. Instead, he checked his phone again, scrolled through something, then put it away and climbed into the vehicle. "Get me a plate," Webb demanded. "Illinois registration Delta Echo 7329, running it now." The SUV pulled out and drove toward the exit. Team 1 scrambled to their vehicles to follow. "Registered to a shell company called Meridian Solutions LLC, Chen reported. "Address is a P.O. box in Delaware, classic corporate anonymity structure." "Of course it is," Webb said. "Nothing's ever easy. Team 1, do you have eyes on the vehicle?" "Affirmative. He's heading east on I-190. Traffic is moderate. Maintaining 2-car buffer." Zara leaned closer to the monitors. "Meridian Solutions. Run that name through federal databases. Government contracts, security clearances, anything connected to TSA or State Department." Chen's fingers flew across his keyboard. "Meridian Solutions. Incorporated 4 years ago. No employees listed. No physical office space. But they do have government contracts. Small ones. IT services, facility maintenance, background check processing." "Background checks," Zara repeated. "That's how they vet their own people. They run their criminal network through a company that has legitimate access to federal background check systems. And probably use that access to identify potential recruits," Webb added. "TSA officers with money problems, customs agents with gambling debts, anyone vulnerable to blackmail or bribery." "Team 1 subject is taking the exit for downtown," a voice crackled over the radio. "Heading south on Canal Street. Heavy traffic. We're staying with him." They listened as the chase continued through Chicago streets. The SUV made several turns, doubled back twice, clearly following counter-surveillance protocols. But the FBI teams were experienced. They rotated positions, used multiple vehicles, stayed invisible in the urban traffic patterns. "He's parking," Team 1 reported. West Loop near Union Station. He's getting out. On foot now, heading north. Wait, he's going into a building. Glass front looks like office space. Hang on, checking the directory. Building houses multiple businesses. Law offices, consulting firms, a few shell companies by the look of it. Get me building security footage, Webb ordered, and someone run the ownership records on that building. While Chen worked, Zara watched the body camera feed as agents positioned themselves around the building. The man had disappeared inside, swallowed by the crowd of workers and visitors moving through the lobby. Facial recognition hit, Chen announced suddenly. His name is Marcus Dalton, former Army Special Forces honorable discharge 8 years ago. Current employment listed as security consultant for Meridian Solutions. So we've got a shell company employing ex-military operators, Zara said. That's our network enforcement. These are the people who killed Torres, who tried to kill me at the hospital. Team 1 subject is exiting the building, the radio crackled. Different clothes. He changed. Now wearing a suit and tie. He's getting into a different vehicle. Silver Mercedes sedan. He changed vehicles and clothes in under 5 minutes, Webb said. He knew he was being followed. This whole thing was a dry run to see if we'd bite. Or he's leading us somewhere he wants us to go, Zara countered. Keep following him. The Mercedes drove north, weaving through traffic with practiced ease. Dalton wasn't speeding or being reckless, but he was definitely testing their surveillance capabilities. After 20 minutes of driving through Chicago's grid, he pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a high-rise residential building in the Gold Coast. Expensive neighborhood, Webb observed. That building has 30-floor condos starting at $2 million. Someone's making good money from weapons trafficking. Can we get access to the building? Zara asked. Working on it. Chen, who owns the building. Property records show it's owned by a real estate investment trust. Residents include lawyers, doctors, a few minor celebrities. Wait, there's one unit registered to a corporation. 40th floor. Ownership traced back to, you're not going to believe this, a State Department employee. The words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Which State Department employee? Zara's voice was dangerously quiet. Chen pulled up the file. Deputy Assistant Secretary Thomas Harrington, career diplomat, 30 years of service, currently assigned to consular affairs. His responsibilities include oversight of diplomatic credentials and embassy security. Diplomatic credentials, Webb repeated. The same credentials being used to move weapons through airport security in fake diplomatic pouches. He's not just in the network, Zara said. He's running it. That's how they get State Department authentication. That's how they issue real diplomatic credentials to smugglers. Harrington is using his position to facilitate weapons trafficking. This is beyond us, Webb said, pulling out his phone. We need to loop in the deputy director immediately. If we're accusing a State Department official of treason... No. Zara grabbed his arm. Not yet. If Harrington is running this, he has connections throughout federal law enforcement. The moment we report this up, the chain someone tips him off and he disappears. We need proof first. Solid, undeniable proof. Zara, we can't just raid a State Department official's residence without authorization. I'm not suggesting we raid it. I'm suggesting we watch it. See who comes and goes. Build a case methodically, but quietly. No official reports, no paper trail. Not until we're ready to take him down. Webb hesitated. What Zara was suggesting bordered on illegal, operating without authorization, conducting surveillance on a high-ranking government official. If this went wrong, it wouldn't just end their careers, it would destroy them. But if she was right, if Harrington was selling American military technology to foreign powers, then the damage to national security was incalculable. 48 hours, Webb said finally. We watch that building for 48 hours. We document everyone who enters that unit. We build the case. Then we take everything we have to the deputy director and let him make the call. Agreed. Team 1 maintain position near that building but stay invisible, Webb ordered. I want round-the-clock surveillance, but no one gets close enough to be spotted. These people are professionals, and Harrington will have security. Over the next 6 hours, they watched as 4 different people entered Harrington's 40th floor unit. Each one was identified through facial recognition. Each one had connections to federal law enforcement or military contracting. First was a TSA supervisor from O'Hare named Michael Patterson. Chen pulled his file 23 years with TSA, responsible for screening operations across 3 terminals. He stayed 90 minutes. Second was a customs agent named Jennifer Walsh, 15 years with CBP specializing in cargo inspection. She stayed 45 minutes. Third was someone who made Zara's blood run cold, FBI Special Agent Robert Chen. Not related to their tech Chen, just another cruel coincidence. He worked in the Chicago field office. In fact, he worked in the same building as Zara and Webb. He stayed 2 hours. "That's our leak," Webb said, his voice hollow. "Chen has access to everything. Operational briefings, case files, protection details. He's been feeding Harrington our every move." "Which means he knows we're watching right now," Zara said. "He'll have alerts on any surveillance activity near this building. We need to pull back before—" Chen's voice cut through urgently. "Movement. FBI Agent Chen is leaving the building. He's on his phone, and he's looking directly at Team 1's position." On the monitor, they watched as Agent Chen stood on the sidewalk outside the residential building, his phone to his ear, his eyes locked on the exact spot where their surveillance team was positioned. "Team 1 abort," Webb ordered. "Pull back now. He's made you." But it was too late. 3 men emerged from the building behind Agent Chen. 2 moved toward Team 1's position with focused purpose. The third pulled out a phone. "We need to move," Zara said, already standing. "They're going to hit our team." "We can't. We're 30 minutes away. By the time we—" Gunfire erupted over the radio. Short, controlled bursts. Professional, then screaming, then chaos. "Team 1 is under fire. Repeat, we are under fire. Multiple hostiles with automatic weapons." Webb grabbed the radio. "All available units respond to Team 1's position. Chicago PD, we have federal agents under attack, need immediate backup." But Zara was already running for the van's door, her good arm reaching for the weapon holstered at her hip. The movement sent fire through her wounded shoulder, but she ignored it. "Zara, stop. You're in no condition. Our people are dying." She burst out of the van onto the street. They were blocks away from the action, but she could hear the sirens already starting, could imagine the chaos erupting in the Gold Coast. Webb and 2 other agents followed her, weapons drawn, moving toward their vehicle. The radio continued its stream of desperate updates. "Agent down. Agent Morrison is hit. We need medical now." Second hostile moving to flank, taking fire from multiple positions. "Where the hell is our backup?" They piled into an SUV, Webb driving with reckless speed through Chicago traffic. Zara braced herself against the dashboard, her weapon ready, her mind calculating angles and options and probabilities of survival. 2 minutes out, Webb said, running a red light. "Hang on." But when they arrived, the street was already swarming with Chicago PD. Ambulances blocked the intersection. Yellow tape cordoned off the entire block. And in the center of the chaos, 3 FBI agents lay on the pavement. Webb jumped out and ran toward them. Zara followed more slowly, her shoulders screaming in protest. Paramedics were working on Agent Morrison, the youngest member of their team. 26 years old. Married 6 months ago. He'd shown Zara pictures of his honeymoon just last week. Now he had 2 bullet wounds in his chest and a third in his abdomen. The paramedics worked frantically, but Zara could see the truth in their faces. He wasn't going to make it. "Where are the shooters?" Webb demanded from a Chicago PD sergeant. "Gone. 3 vehicles, coordinated extraction. They were in and out in under 90 seconds. Professional hit. Military precision." "What about the building? Did anyone lock it down?" "Building security says Harrington left through the underground garage 15 minutes before the shooting started. He's in the wind." Webb's face twisted with rage and frustration. He knew. Chen warned him. They cleaned out before we could move. Zara walked to where Agent Morrison lay. The paramedics had stopped working. One of them looked up at her and shook his head slowly. Gone. He was gone. She knelt beside him, ignoring the pain, ignoring everything except the young man who'd died, because she'd pushed this investigation forward, because she'd insisted on setting a trap, because she'd been so focused on catching the network that she hadn't considered they might be walking into an ambush. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Webb's hand touched her good shoulder. "This isn't your fault. He's dead because I wanted to catch them, because I thought we were being clever, but they were 3 steps ahead the entire time. They were 3 steps ahead because they have someone inside our office feeding them information. That's not on you. That's on Chen. That's on Harrington. That's on every corrupt bastard selling out their country for money." Zara stood slowly. Around them, dozens of law enforcement personnel worked the crime scene, collecting evidence, taking statements, documenting everything. But the shooters were long gone. Harrington was long gone, and Agent Morrison was dead. "We need to report this," Webb said quietly. "No more working in the shadows. This is officially a federal investigation into public corruption and treason. I'm calling the deputy director right now." He walked away, phone already out. Zara stood in the middle of the chaos, her mind racing through everything that had happened. The pattern was clear now. Harrington ran the network. Agent Chen provided FBI intelligence. TSA supervisors like Patterson facilitated the movement of weapons through airport security. Customs agents like Walsh cleared the shipments, and ex-military contractors like Dalton provided enforcement. It was brilliant in its simplicity, used legitimate government positions to create an illegitimate smuggling operation, hide in plain sight, and eliminate anyone who got too close to the truth. Torres had gotten too close. They'd killed him. Morrison had gotten too close. They'd killed him too. And Zara was still alive only because killing an FBI agent in a hospital with security cameras and witnesses was more complicated than killing a TSA officer in his apartment. But they'd keep trying, would keep hunting her until she was dead or they were stopped. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Agent Mitchell." The voice was male, cultured calm. "My name is Thomas Harrington. I believe you've been looking for me." Zara's blood went cold. She frantically gestured to Webb, who came running. She put the phone on speaker. "Where are you, Harrington?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll never find me. I'm calling to offer you a deal." "I don't make deals with traitors. Even traitors who can give you everyone in the network, everyone who helped me move $200 million in weapons over the past 3 years. Names, dates, transactions. Everything you need to dismantle the entire operation. In exchange for what? Immunity. Full immunity from prosecution. I walk away clean, and you get to be the hero who brought down a massive corruption ring. You're insane. You sold classified military technology to foreign powers. You got federal agents killed. You think I'm going to let you walk? I think you don't have a choice, because right now I'm the only one who knows the full scope of this network. The only one who can connect all the pieces. Without me, you'll chase shadows for years, and maybe catch a few low-level operators. With me, you can end it in a week." Webb was shaking his head frantically, mouthing, "No way." But Zara held up a hand. "I'm listening." "Smart woman. I always knew you were smart. That's why I tried to have you killed. Nothing personal, you understand. Just business. But you're harder to kill than I expected. So now we negotiate." "How do I know you'll actually give up the network?" "Because I'm a businessman, Agent Mitchell. And right now, this business has become too dangerous. Too much exposure. Too many federal agencies paying attention. It's time for me to retire quietly with my money while my partners take the fall. Capitalism at its finest. You'd betray everyone who worked with you. They do the same to me in a heartbeat. This is just preemptive self-preservation." Zara looked at Webb. He was still shaking his head, but she could see the calculation in his eyes. The temptation. One conversation with Harrington could break open the entire case, could give them everyone. But at what price? "I need to think about it," Zara said. "You have 24 hours. After that, I disappear permanently. The network restructures, and you spend the rest of your career chasing ghosts. Your choice, Agent Mitchell." The line went dead. Zara and Webb stood in the middle of the crime scene, surrounded by the aftermath of violence, staring at the phone. "We can't give him immunity," Webb said. "He's a traitor. He sold weapons to terrorists. He got Morrison killed. But if we don't, we lose the network. They'll scatter, change their methods, move their operation overseas, and we're back to square one with nothing but a pile of bodies and a case we can't solve. There has to be another way. Is there? Because I've been working this investigation for 6 months, and the only reason we got this close is because Harrington got arrogant. Without his cooperation, what do we have? A corrupt TSA officer who's terrified to talk, a dead customs agent, an FBI leak who's probably already fled the country, and a State Department official who's untouchable because he covered his tracks perfectly. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the crime scene continued its grim work. Finally, he spoke. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil to catch the demons. I'm thinking that if we can use Harrington to take down 50 other corrupt officials, maybe that's worth letting one bastard walk away. And I'm thinking that Agent Morrison deserves justice, and right now, this is the only way to get it. The deputy director will never approve immunity for Harrington." "Then we don't ask him. Not yet. We meet with Harrington. We hear what he has to say. We verify his information. And then we decide whether to recommend immunity or not." "That's not how this works. Nothing about this case has worked the way it should. We've been improvising from the beginning. Why stop now?" Webb looked at the covered body of Agent Morrison being loaded into an ambulance, looked at the blood on the pavement, looked at the chaos and destruction left in the wake of a network that had operated with impunity for years. 24 hours, he said finally. "We have 24 hours to figure out if Harrington's telling the truth, if he can really deliver the network, and if the price of his immunity is worth what we get in return. And if it's not, then we hunt him down and make sure he spends the rest of his life in a supermax prison wondering if his money was worth his freedom." Zara nodded. It wasn't a perfect plan. It wasn't even a good plan. But it was the only plan they had. And tomorrow she'd sit across from Thomas Harrington and decide whether justice meant putting one traitor in prison or taking down an entire network of corruption. Either way, blood had been spilled. And before this was over, more would follow. The meeting location came through at 3 in the morning. A text from an unknown number with simple coordinates and a time: noon tomorrow, Navy Pier South End near the Ferris wheel. Public space, lots of witnesses. Smart choice for someone who didn't trust anyone. Zara hadn't slept. Her shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat, the pain medication wearing off hours ago. She sat in the FBI safe house watching the sun rise over Lake Michigan, turning the water from black to gray to pale blue. Webb sat across from her, equally sleepless, equally haunted by Morrison's death. "The deputy director called 4 times, Webb said quietly. "I've been ignoring him. That can't last much longer. Tell him we're pursuing a lead. Tell him we need 24 hours. Tell him whatever keeps him from shutting this down before we finish it." And what exactly are we finishing? Because right now it looks like we're about to give immunity to a traitor who got one of our own killed. We're getting justice for Morrison, for Torres, for every person this network has used and discarded. We're ending this, Marcus, one way or another. Webb rubbed his face, exhaustion etched into every line. What if Harrington's lying? What if this is just a way to get close to you so his people can finish what they started at the hospital? Then you shoot him. You're the one who insisted on coming with me. Consider yourself my backup plan. I'm serious, Zara. These people have killed federal agents. They've killed TSA officers. They won't hesitate to kill you in broad daylight if they think they can get away with it. I know, but Harrington's smart. He knows killing me now would bring the full weight of federal law enforcement down on him. He wants a deal, and he knows the only way to get it is to deliver what he promised. You're gambling your life on the rationality of a man who's been selling weapons to terrorists for 3 years. I've made worse bets. At 11:30, they left the safe house in an armored SUV with 4 FBI agents as escort. The drive to Navy Pier took 20 minutes through late morning traffic. The pier was crowded with tourists despite the cold November wind coming off the lake. Families with children, couples holding hands, street performers and vendors selling hot dogs and souvenirs. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that a meeting about treason and murder was about to happen 50 yards from the carousel. Zara spotted Harrington immediately. He stood at the railing overlooking the water, wearing an expensive overcoat and leather gloves, looking like any other successful businessman enjoying his lunch break. But his eyes were constantly scanning, assessing threats, calculating exits. Two men stood 20 feet behind him, trying to look casual but failing. Security. Probably the same ex-military contractors who'd killed Morrison. Zara's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon. "Easy," Webb murmured beside her. "We're here to talk. Nothing else." They approached slowly. Harrington turned as they got close, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Agent Mitchell, you look terrible. The shoulder wound healing well? Well enough to pull a trigger if I need to." "I'm sure. And you must be Special Agent in Charge, Webb. I've read your file. Or decorated Marine, 20 years with the Bureau, exemplary record. It's a shame we're meeting under these circumstances." "Save the small talk," Webb said coldly. "You said you could deliver the network. Start talking." Harrington pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "Everything's on here. Names, dates, transactions, bank account numbers, communication logs. 3 years of operational data. Enough to indict 67 people across 8 federal agencies." "How do we know it's real?" Zara asked. "You verify it. Take your time. Run down every name trace, every transaction. You'll find I'm telling the truth. The question is whether you're willing to give me immunity in exchange for it." "Immunity for what exactly? You've committed treason, weapons trafficking, conspiracy to murder federal agents. That's life in prison at minimum death penalty if the prosecutors are feeling motivated. Which is why I'm offering you everyone else. TSA supervisors who took bribes, customs agents who falsified inspection reports, FBI agents who leaked classified information, State Department employees who issued fake credentials, defense contractors who sold stolen technology. I can give you all of them, but only if I walk away clean." Webb's jaw clenched. "You're asking us to let you profit from your crimes while everyone who worked for you goes to prison." "I'm asking you to be pragmatic. Without my testimony, you can maybe convict a handful of low-level operators. With it, you can dismantle the entire network. You can recover stolen technology. You can identify foreign buyers. You can prevent future operations. That's worth one man's freedom." "Morrison's widow might disagree," Zara said quietly. For the first time, Harrington's mask slipped. Something like genuine regret crossed his face. "Agent Morrison's death was unfortunate. I gave specific orders that no one was to be killed unless absolutely necessary. The contractors exceeded their authority." "So you're saying it's not your fault that a federal agent died following your orders?" "I'm saying I didn't pull the trigger. The men who did will face consequences." "What consequences? You're planning to disappear. How are they going to face anything?" Harrington smiled again. "Their names are on the flash drive. Marcus Dalton and Stephen Chen, former Special Forces currently working as independent contractors. They carried out the hospital attack and yesterday's shooting. I'm giving them to you." "You'd give up your own security." "They're not my security. They're hired guns, mercenaries who work for whoever pays. I'm done paying." Zara studied Harrington's face. He meant it. He was willing to sacrifice everyone to save himself. The depth of his narcissism was almost impressive. "We need to verify the data," Webb said. "We're not agreeing to anything until we confirm what you're giving us is real and actionable. You have until midnight tonight. After that, the offer expires and I disappear. You'll never find me, and the network will simply reconstitute under new leadership with new protocols. Everything you've done, all the people who've died, will be for nothing." He handed the flash drive to Zara. Their fingers touched briefly, and she fought the urge to pull back in disgust. "One more thing," Harrington said. "There's information on that drive about operations beyond the trafficking network, classified programs, black budget activities, things that will embarrass people in very high places if they become public." "Are you threatening us?" Webb's voice was dangerous. "I'm informing you. I have insurance, multiple copies of that data stored in various locations with instructions to release it publicly if anything happens to me. So if you're thinking about arresting me right now or having one of your snipers put a bullet in my head, understand that doing so will trigger a cascade of revelations that will damage national security far more than letting me walk away ever could. You son of a bitch, Zara breathed. You're holding the entire government hostage. I prefer to think of it as ensuring mutual cooperation. You get your convictions, I get my freedom. Everyone wins, except the corrupt officials who sold out their country. That seems fair, doesn't it? Before either of them could respond, Harrington nodded to his security team and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of tourists with practiced ease. Within seconds he was gone, just another face in the endless flow of people. Webb grabbed Zara's arm as she started to follow. Let him go. We have what we need. Do we, or do we have exactly what he wants us to have? They returned to the FBI office and immediately began analyzing the flash drive. Chen pulled up the first files and let out a low whistle. This is real. Bank transfers, encrypted communications meeting logs. It's all here, and it's incredibly detailed. Zara scrolled through page after page of damning evidence. Harrington hadn't exaggerated. The data named dozens of corrupt officials across multiple agencies. TSA Supervisor Michael Patterson had received over $2 million in bribes over 3 years. Customs Agent Jennifer Walsh had falsified inspection reports on 63 separate shipments. And FBI Agent Robert Chen, their leak, had provided classified information in exchange for $400,000. Look at this, Chen said, pulling up a communication log. Torres tried to report the network 4 different times, not just to TSA Internal Affairs, but to FBI, to Homeland Security, even to the State Department Inspector General. Every single report was intercepted and buried by someone inside the system. Who? Webb demanded. It's redacted here, but based on the access levels required, it had to be someone senior, deputy director level or higher. The implications were staggering. The corruption went higher than they'd imagined. High enough that Torres never stood a chance. His reports had been killed before they ever reached anyone who could act on them. Here's the list of weapons that were trafficked, Zara said, pulling up another file. Drone guidance systems, encrypted communications equipment, night vision technology, even some prototype systems still in development. This wasn't just stealing and selling. This was systematic espionage. Who were the buyers? Webb asked. Chen scrolled through transaction records. Shell companies in Dubai, financial institutions in Singapore, defense contractors in Eastern Europe. But if you trace the money back far enough, it leads to foreign governments: Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Harrington was selling our military secrets to our enemies. That's not weapons trafficking, Webb said. That's treason on a scale I can't even comprehend. How did he get access to this technology in the first place? Through his position at State Department, Zara said, reading through Harrington's operational notes. He had oversight of embassy security, which gave him access to classified shipments being sent to embassies overseas. He'd intercept the real shipments, replace them with decoys, and sell the actual technology on the black market. The embassies would receive equipment that looked right but didn't work. By the time anyone noticed, the technology was already sold, and Harrington had covered his tracks. Brilliant, Chen said with grudging admiration. Completely evil, but brilliant. For the next 8 hours, they tore apart every file on Harrington's flash drive. They verified names against federal databases. They traced bank accounts through international financial systems. They cross-referenced dates and locations with TSA security logs and airport surveillance footage. Everything checked out. Every name was real. Every transaction was documented. Every piece of evidence was solid enough to bring charges. By 8 that evening, they had confirmed that Harrington had delivered exactly what he'd promised. The network was exposed. 67 corrupt officials could be arrested and prosecuted based solely on the data he'd provided. But there was a problem. These black budget files, Zara said, opening one of the encrypted folders, what Harrington mentioned about operations that would embarrass people in high places. Did you look at these? Webb shook his head. I assumed they were just more evidence of corruption. Why? Zara pulled up the document and her face went pale. Because these aren't about the trafficking network. These are about CIA operations, NSA surveillance programs, military actions that were never publicly acknowledged. This is beyond classified. This is the kind of information that governments kill to protect. And Harrington has copies stored as insurance, Webb said, understanding. If we arrest him, this all becomes public. Not just public. He set up a dead man's switch. If he doesn't check in every 72 hours, the file's automatically released to every major news organization in the world. The Washington Post, the New York Times, WikiLeaks, everyone. So we're not just choosing between giving him immunity or losing the network. We're choosing between giving him immunity or causing a massive intelligence breach that could damage national security for decades. Zara closed the file, her hands shaking with rage. He played us. From the very beginning, he played us. This was never about making a deal. This was about putting us in an impossible position where we have to let him walk or risk catastrophic consequences. We need to tell the deputy director, this is above our pay grade. And what do you think he's going to say? He's going to say the same thing we're thinking, that we can't risk those files going public, that the damage would be too great, that we have to give Harrington immunity and let a traitor walk free. Webb stood and paced the room. Outside the windows, Chicago's lights sparkled in the darkness. Millions of people going about their lives, trusting that their government was protecting them, never knowing how close that protection had come to complete betrayal. There has to be another way, Webb said. Some way to get the network without giving Harrington immunity. Some way to find his dead man's switch and disable it before what? Before midnight when his offer expires, Marcus, we have 4 hours. 4 hours to make a decision that will affect national security, federal law enforcement, and the future of this investigation. What do you want to do? Before Webb could answer, Chen called out from his workstation. Sir, we just got a hit on facial recognition. Robert Chen, our FBI leak. He was spotted 40 minutes ago at O'Hare International Airport. Which terminal? Zara demanded. Terminal 5, international departures. Looks like he's trying to flee the country. Zara was already moving toward the door. He can't get on that plane. If he reaches a non-extradition country, we lose him forever, and he's the only person who can testify against Harrington if this deal falls through. Zara, wait. Webb grabbed her arm. TSA has already been notified. They'll stop him at security. Unless he has help. Unless Patterson or Walsh or one of the other corrupted officials gets him through. We can't take that chance. We need to get there now. They raced to O'Hare in convoy sirens blaring, lights flashing. The drive took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Zara's mind spun through scenarios, contingencies, possibilities. Everything was falling apart. Morrison was dead. Harrington was untouchable. And now their star witness was trying to flee the country. They burst into Terminal 5 with weapons-drawn badges held high. Passengers screamed and scattered. TSA officers looked up in confusion, and at Gate M14 boarding a flight to Moscow was Robert Chen. FBI, nobody move, Webb shouted. Chen saw them and ran, not toward the plane but back into the terminal, pushing through crowds, knocking over travelers, causing chaos. 2 FBI agents gave chase. Zara followed despite the pain in her shoulder, her weapon up her training overriding her exhaustion. Chen was fast, but the agents were faster. They cornered him near a food court, weapons trained on him from 3 different angles. It's over, Chen, Zara called out. There's nowhere to go. Put your hands up and get on the ground. You don't understand, Chen said, his voice panicked. You don't understand what you're doing. Harrington told me if I cooperated, if I helped him, he'd protect me. He said, Harrington lies. That's what he does. He used you just like he used everyone else, and now he's giving you up to save himself. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to betray the Bureau. But he had leverage. He had evidence that I'd taken money from an informant years ago. Small stuff, nothing major, but enough to end my career. He said if I helped him, he'd make the evidence disappear. I thought I could get out clean. By getting Morrison killed. Zara's voice was ice. By helping assassins try to murder me in a hospital. That's your idea of getting out clean. I didn't know they were going to kill Morrison. Harrington said they'd just scare your team off. He said no one else had to die. He lied to me. Welcome to the club. He lied to all of us. But you made your choice, Chen. You chose money over duty. You chose corruption over honor. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison paying for that choice. I can help you. I can testify against him. I know things that aren't on that flash drive. Zara lowered her weapon and walked toward Chen slowly. What things? His real identity. Harrington isn't his real name. He's been operating under deep cover for 20 years. His actual identity is protected by CIA. If you prosecute him, the agency will shut you down to protect their operation. The words hit like a bomb. Zara and Webb exchanged stunned looks. What are you talking about? Webb demanded. Thomas Harrington is a CIA asset, has been since the 90s. His position at State Department was a cover for intelligence operations. The trafficking network, the weapons sales, all of it was supposed to be a sanctioned operation to track foreign buyers. But Harrington went rogue, started keeping the money for himself instead of using it for operations, turned a legitimate intelligence operation into his personal criminal enterprise. And the CIA knows about this. Some of them know, not everyone. It's compartmented, need-to-know basis. But if you try to arrest Harrington publicly, the agency will claim he's protected by national security protocols. They'll bury the investigation to avoid exposing their operation. Zara felt sick. This wasn't just corruption. This was institutional betrayal at the highest levels. The CIA had created a monster and then lost control of it, and now they'd protect that monster to save their own reputation. That's why Harrington's so confident, she said. He knows the CIA won't let us prosecute him. He's untouchable. Not completely, Chen said desperately. There are factions within CIA who want him gone, people who know he went rogue and want him brought to justice. But they can't act officially without exposing the operation. They need someone outside the agency to do it, someone like you. Why should I believe anything you say? Zara asked. You've been lying since the beginning. Because I have proof, documents, communications between Harrington and his CIA handlers, evidence that the agency knew he was stealing and did nothing to stop it. I kept copies as insurance, and I'll give them to you if you cut me a deal. Webb's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then his face went white. When how many? He hung up and looked at Zara. That was TSA dispatch. There's been an incident at Terminal 3, Locker 447, the dead drop location. Someone left a package. Bomb squad just cleared it. It's not a bomb. What is it? It's evidence. Files, documents, and a note addressed to you. They left Chen with the other agents and raced back to Terminal 3. The locker stood open, surrounded by yellow tape. Inside was a thick manila envelope. Zara pulled on gloves and opened it carefully. Inside were documents, CIA operational files, communications between Thomas Harrington and his handlers dating back 15 years, proof that the agency had known about his corruption for at least 3 years and had done nothing, and a handwritten note on State Department letterhead. Agent Mitchell, by now you've learned the truth about my identity. You understand why arresting me publicly is impossible. But I'm not as untouchable as I led you to believe. Someone inside CIA wants me gone. They're using you to do what they can't do officially. The evidence I gave you is real. Use it. Arrest everyone in the network. But know that I will disappear. I will take my money and vanish. And there's nothing you can do to stop me, because the moment you try, the agency will intervene. Consider this a draw. You get justice for your fallen agents. I get my freedom. And the intelligence community gets to bury a scandal that would destroy them. Sometimes that's how the game is played. Respectfully, Thomas Harrington. Zara read the note 3 times, then she crumpled it in her fist and screamed. Everything they'd done, everyone who died, Torres, Morrison, all of it for nothing, because the CIA would protect their rogue asset rather than admit they'd lost control. We can still arrest the network, Webb said quietly. We can still get justice for 67 corrupt officials. That's something. It's not enough. I know, but it might be all we get. Zara looked at the open locker, at the evidence inside, at the documents that proved everything. Then she made her decision. No, it's not all we get. Call the deputy director. Tell him we need an emergency meeting with the CIA director. Tonight. Right now. Zara, they will if we threaten to go public with everything. Harrington gave us leverage. Let's use it. 3 hours later, they sat in a secure conference room at FBI headquarters with the deputy director, the CIA director, and half a dozen lawyers from the Justice Department. Zara laid out everything: the trafficking network, Harrington's true identity, the CIA's complicity, the evidence they'd gathered. The CIA director, a woman named Elizabeth Warren with steel gray hair and eyes like flint, listened without interrupting. When Zara finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "If this becomes public," she said finally, "it will damage the agency irreparably. It will compromise ongoing operations. It will endanger assets in the field. And it will undermine public trust in intelligence gathering at a time when we can't afford to lose credibility." "I don't care," Zara said flatly. "Your agency created this situation. You let Harrington operate for years, knowing he was corrupt. You protected him instead of stopping him. And people died because of it." "Agent Mitchell, you're young and idealistic. You think justice is simple. But intelligence work operates in shades of gray. Sometimes we protect bad people to achieve greater good. Sometimes we make deals with devils to catch demons. That's the reality of this world." "Then change the reality. Give me Harrington. Let me arrest him. Let me prosecute him for treason. Show the world that no one is above the law, not even CIA assets." "I can't do that." "Then I'm going to the press, tonight, with everything. And you can explain to Congress why you protected a traitor selling military secrets to foreign governments." The room erupted in objections. Lawyers shouting about national security, the deputy director warning about consequences. But the CIA director held up a hand for silence. "What do you want, Agent Mitchell? I want Harrington in prison. I want the network dismantled. I want justice for Torres and Morrison and everyone else who died trying to stop this. That's what I want. And if I can't give you all of that, what will you accept?" Zara thought about Morrison's widow, about Torres's family, about every federal agent who put their life on the line, trusting that their government would protect them. Harrington goes to prison, even if it's in secret, even if the public never knows. He faces consequences for what he did. That's non-negotiable. The CIA director studied Zara's face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I can make that happen. Not through public prosecution, but through internal action. Harrington will be detained, he will be held accountable, and he will never be free again. But it will be quiet. No trial, no media, just justice delivered in the shadows." "How do I know you'll actually do it?" "Because if I don't, you'll release everything you have and destroy the agency. You've made that clear. And frankly, Agent Mitchell, I believe you're crazy enough to do it. So I'm going to give you what you want. Not because I think it's right, but because you've given me no other choice." "When?" "Harrington will be taken into custody within 48 hours. You have my word." "Your word isn't worth much considering you've been protecting him for 3 years. "Then consider it a binding promise backed by the threat of mutually assured destruction. You keep quiet about the CIA's involvement. I deliver Harrington to justice. We both get what we need." Zara wanted to refuse, wanted to blow the whole thing open and let the chips fall where they may. But she looked at Webb and saw the exhaustion in his eyes, looked at the deputy director and saw the weight of responsibility, looked at the lawyers and saw the complexity of the situation. Sometimes justice wasn't perfect. Sometimes it was just the best you could get in an imperfect world. "Fine," she said, "but I want proof. Photos, documentation, something that shows me Harrington is actually being held accountable and not just relocated to a comfortable retirement somewhere." "You'll get it." 2 days later, Zara received an encrypted email with a single photograph attached. Thomas Harrington in a prison cell. Not a federal facility. Somewhere off the books. Somewhere he'd spend the rest of his life paying for his crimes, even if the world never knew his name. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was justice nonetheless. The network members were arrested in coordinated raids across 8 states. 67 people taken into custody charged with corruption, bribery, weapons trafficking, and conspiracy. The trials would last years. The damage to federal agencies would take decades to repair. But the network was broken. Ryan Caldwell pleaded guilty to assault and civil rights violations. With his cooperation against the network, he received 12 years instead of life. His testimony helped convict 15 corrupt TSA officers. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. Detective Sarah Chen received a commendation for her work identifying Torres's murder. David Torres's family received a settlement and an apology. It wouldn't bring him back, but it acknowledged that his death mattered. Agent Morrison was buried with full honors. His widow refused to speak to Zara, and Zara didn't blame her. Some wounds don't heal. Some losses can't be made right. And Zara returned to duty 3 months later, her shoulder healed, but her faith in the system permanently damaged. She'd learned that justice wasn't blind or pure or simple. She'd learned that sometimes you have to compromise with corruption to defeat it. She'd learned that the good guys don't always win, and sometimes winning doesn't feel good at all. But she'd also learned that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight is impossible. That some truths need to be told, even when telling them costs everything. And that justice, however imperfect, is still worth pursuing because the alternative is letting evil win by default. 6 months after the arrests, Zara received one final encrypted message. No sender, no identifying information, just 3 words, your move agent. She deleted it without responding. Whatever game Harrington thought they were playing, she was done playing. She'd gotten her justice such as it was, and she'd sleep at night knowing that a traitor was in a cell instead of on a beach somewhere counting his blood money. It wasn't the ending she'd wanted. It wasn't the ending anyone deserved, but it was the ending they got. And in the murky world of federal law enforcement, where corruption and honor existed in uncomfortable proximity, where justice was negotiated rather than delivered, where right and wrong blurred into infinite shades of gray, sometimes that was the best you could hope for. Zara Mitchell had exposed a massive criminal network. She'd brought down dozens of corrupt officials. She'd avenged the deaths of her fellow agents. And she'd learned that the price of justice sometimes included sacrificing the satisfaction of seeing it done publicly. But as she sat at her desk looking at Morrison's empty chair across the room, she made herself a promise. The next time corruption threatened the people she'd sworn to protect, she wouldn't compromise. She wouldn't negotiate. She wouldn't settle for justice in the shadows. She'd burn the whole corrupt system down and let the world see the ashes. Because some battles are worth losing everything to win. And Zara Mitchell was just getting started.